A night in with MauLer and the drinker, getting trashed with the web screen thinkers. A cheap night cause I'm feeling kinda thrifty, got a 10-pack of beers and a bottle of whiskey. Hop up the cork, have a glass of wine, cause they'll say I'll be fine. Trouble walking in a straight line, but pour me a Pinot Noir. It's open bar with our hosts, MauLer and the critical drinker.
All right. Hello, everyone.
Yay, new intro. Wow.
New intro. Woo. What did everyone think about that? That was that was the sterling work of Roaming Trend, who just did this new intro for us completely on his own initiative, sent it in, and we were just so impressed. We thought, damn it, we have to roll this out immediately. So well done to you, sir. That was brilliant stuff. I really liked it. Oh, there he is. Roaming Trend. That's me.
Good stuff.
No, great work, man. Very much enjoyed it. So, but anyway, welcome everyone. This is Open Bar number 67. I mean, we're getting closer to 69, MauLer. We're gonna have to do something special for that one.
You'll be disappointed if we don't bring everything out for 69.
Oh yeah. But hey ho, well, we're here tonight and we've got a whole bunch of guests waiting in the wings, so I guess we should bring them in so we can get started proper, get this party started. Well, he is the life and soul of every party, and he is our co-host for this evening. It is the one and only Critical Doggo, and as you can tell, he is just as excited as we are to be here, so well done to you. Smokey
has the big hot takes on Ahsoka. Looking forward to it today. Oh, see, he's already opened his eye for that one.
Yeah, he parked up a little bit there. You're gonna talk about Ahsoka, Smokey.
See, he's getting angry already. Damn, that seventh episode, it just pissed everyone off. So he's here, he's ready.
Well, Greyhounds are real sticklers for lore and character consistency as well. So it's definitely gonna piss him off. So
Makes sense.
But hey, we should also bring in some actual humans that we can talk to as well. So
let's do that
as well. So he is a former TV network executive, a man with decades of experience in the industry, and he's going to shed some light on the shenanigans that have been going on with the WGA and their contract negotiations and their strikes and everything. He is making his return to the open bar. It is Paul Chato. Welcome back, sir.
I forgot a beer. Damn.
We can wait. We can wait if you want to go get one.
I might go get one later. Anyway,
I'll just have to drink for you.
Yeah, no, okay. You can drink on my behalf. It's a pleasure to be here again. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, thank you for coming back, man. And it'll be interesting to get your takes on how the week's events have shaken out.
Yeah, I can go over in a rudimentary way for your audience. I won't get into it too deeply because it's you don't want inside baseball stuff, right?
We're pretty simple-minded here as well, so you got to use small words and give us the high level view.
The writers stop and now they go.
I'll do a Gary Lineker play-by-play.
Yeah, you can do that. But yeah, thank you, man. And our next guest is he's been on the open bar so many times I've lost count. So it's easier to just bring him in because everyone knows him, everyone likes him. It is the little Platoon. He is the poshest person in the bar by a long shot, and I even include MauLer in that.
He brings class that I just can't match. It's true.
It's the Welshness holding you back, you see.
No, I've been so many times I made it into the intro. That was very good. I vaguely remember that night in the open bar, but I don't think Fringy would like me to tell you what went on behind the scenes after that. Frank. I still have between the two of goo in my mouth. But
I've just started rewatching all the Jeeves and Woosters, and it's nice to have little Platoon on to keep that vibe going.
Bring that element of British class.
Yes, that's a very funny, well-written show. Those
Jeeves and Wooster, yeah.
Oh my gosh,
it was Stephen Fry, wasn't it? And Hugh Laurie.
Yeah, Hugh Laurie, yeah.
No, I remember that. It was.
I read the books, so they're very, they're very close to the books.
Yeah. No, good stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's been at least 24 hours since you and I have spoken Platoon, because we were on Mr. Brown's channel last night
We
discussing
were.
Ahsoka.
We get to talk about Ahsoka all over again.
Yeah,
In 2 days. Yay.
I'm gonna leave that until later in the stream because it's like we're on episode 7 now. We're in the home straight, but my goodness, it's been a slog. Yeah,
it's one more left,
so
right?
Yeah, isn't it like 2 days later or whatever that Loki starts? It's like, oh, they ain't letting you let up.
Disney frying pan into the fire. Yeah, but we've got that to look forward to. But yeah, our final guest this evening. This is him making his debut on the open bar. I've been watching his channel for quite a while now, and I think he's had some fantastic takes on everything from video games to movies to to Disney to Azzy's rants. It is Endymion.
Welcome, hey guys, how you doing?
Sir. Yeah,
nice to have me. This is weird for me. It's cool, but it's weird. Because I've been watching you guys for years, and it's just like to know you guys actually watch my stuff is just it's like a pinch me moment. So this is really coul. Thank you.
No, appreciate you coming on, man. It's good to have you here.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you've done some great. I guess it's just I appreciate how well balanced your takes are. They always seem like pretty well thought out, and yeah, it's just always entertaining to watch your videos.
Yeah, they're I just kind of just write down everything, and then I just make my videos without thinking too hard about editing what I say the first time, because then I'll kind of muck it up a little bit, and then that's kind of it. So I try to keep it as authentic as possible if I can. Hopefully that's how it comes across.
Absolutely.
It does. You're very authentic, and I hate you.
Thank you. That's okay. You're not the only one. The whole
I read there was a bit of a run there where he actually did a not apology, but a correction. That was an interesting set of videos. It was very good of you. I thought you were really good about it.
I think Heels versus Babyface was right about the Starfield thing. I didn't convey it well the first time, so I had to come back and fix it. And I just have communities that don't like me, but it's okay. Like Xbox community is not exactly they're not exactly very happy about me because of what I said about Starfield, which is fine. And it's okay. It's fine. But I'm happy because today I'm doing this with you guys, and then later on tonight, Iron Maiden's playing, so I'm gonna go see them. So
nice. It's the T-shirt.
It's gonna be a good day. Yeah.
Wow. I can't wait. Nice.
See them many times.
Good, man. Yeah, I guess before we get the main show going, I was going to do a quick RIP for Gambon. He passed away today. Michael Gambon, obviously a well-known British actor. I guess people these days know him for playing Dumbledore, but he's had a career spanning absolutely decades. 82 years old, died today. So sad news. And also, my mods made me aware as well. One of our regulars in the chat that often comes here into various other channels. It was Tim Hannebaum. He's a film and TV writer. He used to be quite a regular around these parts. He actually passed away as well. So sad news there as well. But such is life, I guess. But hey ho. I was gonna begin really with a couple of rumors that were swirling around. One of them being about the James Bond franchise, because it feels like the whole franchise has been kind of in limbo since Daniel Craig
since they killed him.
Since they killed him, which was an odd choice, but they're obviously planning to make more Bond movies with a new Bond, because apparently he will return. And the question is obviously being who's going to play Bond and who's going to direct the next movie. So the rumor that seems to be doing the rounds at the moment is that Christopher Nolan is going to direct not one, but possibly 2 or 3 films, and that they are eyeing Aaron Taylor Johnson for the main role. Now, I don't know how much credence to lend to this, but apparently they were interested in having Christopher Nolan direct and to take it back as a more period piece in the time where the books are actually set. So you're talking 1950s,
1960s,
which I've got to be honest, sounds awesome, because I'm kind of done with the hyper advanced technology of the current era, I think it almost like restricts what you can do. I think Bond is much more at home during the Cold War, where he's having to use his wits more than high technology. And if you could do something that was nice and gritty, set in the 50s, post World War II, get a guy like Aaron Taylor Johnson to do it, because I think Bullet Train kind of showed that he's got the swagger, he's got the attitude, he's got the physique to play Bond. He could do it potentially. I think this sounds like a pretty good idea. Like I say, I've got no idea how much credence to lend to these rumors, but it sounds pretty good from what I'm hearing.
I'm always tempted to say it won't happen just because it does sound like a good idea. And when have we ever actually known these people to do the right thing? But I'm with you. I mean, Bond, if you take it back to an older decade, there's also sort of the implied class of 1950s, 1960s, in which sort of Bond's swagger has a little bit of extra class again to it.
Spy.
As opposed to Daniel Craig sort of lumbering through the modern world as a very modern Bond, which pleased nobody.
Yeah, I always felt like Bond for a modern audience, and like the whole gist of Bond was that he was in World War II. I think that was the basis of the character, and this is very much a post World War II Cold War situation where he's now gone from being a soldier to a spy, which I think is a great setting. I love that period.
I completely agree. And my parents spent a bit of their life in Soviet Hungary. So that felt like I was on the set of some kind of Cold War spy adventure, just visiting it. I mean, there's just so many things that happened, when I was there in 72. The feeling of it is fantastic. I mean, and you take a movie like The Day of the Jackal, where we know what the ending is, yet it's an unbelievably gripping film.
Yeah.
So
the James Fox version, not the Bruce Willis one.
Oh no, yes, the James Fox version, and there's no reason why you can't know the outcome of a James Bond movie, yet make the pieces as fantastic as the Day of the Jackal. I would totally look forward to that. In fact, I did a video where I said I'd love to get the 1940s comic version of Batman, Superman, the Angel, and Kazaa the Great. I would love to see the old cars and have them reduce the level of powers and shit that they were able to do down to the level of the comic books of that era. Now, I think this James Bond with Nolan from the Cold War would be just amazing. Very Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy too, right? I mean,
yeah. No, it's an exact parallel for that sort of time period. And I feel like this kind of genre would be well suited to Nolan's tastes as a director. This guy likes labyrinthine storylines, and he likes to play with expectations and had sudden revelations that are built up over the course of the movie. Like that's all perfectly in line with Bond. So I think he could do it. Would probably be a very very grounded, gritty kind of spy story. Like I think that it would lose some of the fantastical elements of Bond, but then that's where the franchise has gone under Daniel Craig anyway. So I think it could be fine.
That's the thing. There's no picking up from where Craig has left it off. There's no need to maintain that continuity. There's no need to respect that timeline. Just let it go.
I don't know if I don't know, how do you do this? Like maybe every run of a new Bond now just becomes a completely separate universe. They're disconnected from everything else, and it's like every time you get a new actor playing Bond, it's just like a whole new continuity. And when he dies or retires or whatever, we just start again, and it's a whole new continuity once more.
Yeah, because the Craig probably do it that way. Really tried to not only bind to the overall Bond sort of continuity, but to bind all of the Craig films together as well. And it's like they spent way too much time on that. Should have focused a little bit on telling good stories.
Yeah. Well, it was in this weird middle ground where it's like it references past events and like, the Aston Martin and stuff, as if that's something that he's lived through. But at the same time, Casino Royale was meant to be his origin story. It's just like his first movie and his first major mission as a 00 agent. So it's like, well, how does any of that work? which one is it? Like, are you starting up a new continuity and doing an origin, or are you just trying to play this sort of Bond game that every other actor's done, where it's like a loose recognition that it's all part of the same character, but we don't talk about it too much. You can't have both, really.
I think crazy.
Nolan would be amazing as it doing it, though.
Oh,
Sorry,
yeah,
like Nolan would be great because he did Inception and everything, and to me, those are kind of like Bond movies, sort of in a way too, how they were like filmed
I feel like
and everything.
Bond is a good experiment with Nolan. I wouldn't guarantee great films, but I would happily see what he'd come out with. But I was going to say, they had Christoph Waltz playing Blofeld. That was a thing that happened, and nobody wants to remember it. Like, damn, that's how bad they did. Good old was that Spectre?
That was Spectre.
Yeah,
Spectre, yeah.
The transition from World War II into spying is a fascinating story. I don't think, I mean, I would imagine, even though it was never written, kind of an origin story would be neat. I mean, because I'm a history buff, that seeing the end of World War II, seeing what the Soviets were doing, seeing that they had already gotten into some heavy core spying like so quickly, and then the Brits were scared to death, and the Americans were somnambulant and didn't really realize that the Soviets were already, at DEFCON 5 when it came to infiltrating their countries, and the catch up that was required, even though everyone was exhausted from the war. There's a great story in there. I mean, it's a premise, not a story, but I mean, there's a premise in there to have a James Bond be created out of that. I would, if it could be well written, I would find that interesting.
Yeah, it would be a fun way of balancing out as well, because you could have a Bond origin story, Bond going behind enemy lines, Operation Paperclip, but then you have to effectively spy against the Russians and the Americans as the British attempt to work the middle ground between the two.
Mm-hmm.
And Bond has always had a bit of a history with like on and off relationship with the CIA, sometimes allied, but never quite of the same interest set. You can explore, a really, really fascinating, complex, dark period of history with a lot of moral ambiguity on both sides, without lapsing into maybe some of the slightly too on the nose anti-communist stuff of the 1980s. Not that that's not a worthy endeavor, it's just that sometimes the stories suffered for that, I think.
Yeah, because in a lot of the I assume the books as well, but like in the sort of Roger Moore or the Sean Connery era of Bond, like very much at the height of the Cold War, the Soviets weren't necessarily portrayed as villains. Like they were just other players in the same game. You quite often, I can't remember the leader of the Soviet, the KGB, but he was a recurring character where he wasn't necessarily a villain. He often had a vested interest in the mission as much as MI6 did, and so you quite often got that interplay between the two. And like there was even a couple of movies where Bond had to work with a KGB agent. So
a very ugly woman. Yes, it was a terrible situation. It was horrible.
Yeah, that was Barbara Bach, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was horrible.
Oh, she was a hottie back in the day. Nice one.
Have you guys seen Chloe, the German Netflix spy series?
No.
So I mean, I love it. I mean, I would love it if one of you guys saw it. You could confirm whether I'm nuts or not. But it's at the end of the Cold War, and the Berlin Wall is coming down. She's a Stasi agent that goes into West Germany to kill people for the Stasi. Then things change. Her bosses, who have been stealing money, go off to villas. They're rich actually because they've been taking all this cash, because obviously these are honorable people, and they try to kill her because she knows too much, and obviously she doesn't die. And then she has a really hard time negotiating the West and everything that it offers, because she's lived in East Germany her entire life, and she's bitter about what she's had to go through, but she's somehow still loyal. And then she goes into the West to kill off all her former bosses. And it's just...
What's it called again?
Chloe. Kleo. Cleo.
Write that down.
And the reason I bring it up is that the atmosphere is one of the characters. East Germany is a character. I love it when physical locations become characters. The people's attitudes are characters. And then you've got the West, of course, and its freedoms at the time, which are a shock to her, and she's kind of bitter about that. But and she's no Mary Sue. Oh my God! Like she gets beaten up very, very badly, and just comes through. And I think there's a season 2 coming. So if a Bond could recreate that kind of atmosphere, I think it'd be fantastic.
I would love that. Like for me, my family was devastated by World War II. Like most of my dad's side of the family died during World War II. And then his father only escaped because he was a carpenter and knew a couple of languages, moved to Canada, had a bunch of kids, ended up taking his own life because of all the horrors he saw. So I've always had a really strong connection to World War II. So if they had a Bond movie where even if he wasn't like an agent at the time and it was an origin story and he was like a British soldier going behind the lines, fighting the Nazis, whatever, learning stuff. And then at the end of the movie, they're like, hey, by the way, you did so good. We want you to join this secret agency. And then he's an agent now. I think that'd be sweet. Like, honestly, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. As Platoon said, though, like, because we're so enthusiastic about this and we're already coming up with like really cool scenarios, it seems like a great idea. Clearly, they will not do that. And it will just be some crappy continuation of Bond in the current day with all the crap that comes with it.
It'll be Daniel Craig's daughter.
Probably,
or whatever.
Yeah. There was a thing that did the rounds recently, and it was like an extract from the latest Bond novel, which was
that's so tragic.
Oh God, don't bring
this up.
It's so
fantastic. The villain is an anti-immigration, climate change denying Andrew Tate fan or something. And there's actually a bit where Bond comments on how like a meeting that he goes to undercover is so lacking in diversity.
Oh no! Are you serious?
It's the most pathetic thing I have ever seen.
Quote, the villain hadn't been the least bit concerned about ensuring that half of the people he'd hired to carry out his coup should be women, non-white, or disabled. The implication there kind of being that the coup would be better if it had been more diverse, but you know.
Just people like rolling around on wheelchairs with machine guns mounted on them or something.
And if you want an extra tragic angle to that, it's written by Charlie Higson, and Charlie Higson wrote The Fast Show, which, like, if you're familiar with old sort of 90s British sitcoms, was really quite funny. It was really good, and it was, you know, kind of it was lightweight. It wasn't particularly political in either direction, but it was, you know, ultra short sketches. Some of them were, you know, created this whole cast of much loved characters. My family references The Fast Show sketches on every get together. It's just one of those types of really quotable shows. And this guy wrote that and is now writing this. I just think some people just shouldn't be allowed to produce art once they hit the age of, you know, I don't know, 50 or however old he is.
Yeah, I mean, I guess this is where so many comedians have gone. Like Frankie Boyle used to be funny, then he became this fucking humorless, like Guardian reading, just woke scold who's just permanently appalled by everything. You know, that's how the mighty have fallen. So many comedians have gone down that road because they have to now. Like they have to be like super PC, and yeah, man, like this is why comedy is kind of dying.
Little Platoon with the diversity thing that reminds me of Grace Randall's review of the Suicide Squad, where she said that all the people Starro was killing, the crushing as a giant starfish, not many white people, a lot of people of color. It's like the victims were
in a Central American country. Who would have thought?
It's just like, what the fuck? And she had basically concluded like the film would be a lot better if more white people had died. Okay,
Grace Randolph is truly one of the treasures of our era.
Yes, she's great.
Keep making content forever, Grace. You're a lol cow of the highest order.
I still can't get over the Mario is popular because of Asian furries one. That was a really special take.
I don't watch it.
Why a cat suit? I guess furries and the Asian market.
Jesus Christ.
Watching a 60-year-old woman like talking about something she clearly has no understanding of. I always generally, my theory was that she's actually not a real human. She's a malfunctioning AI. Because some of the things she says are so inexplicable. I'm like, yeah, this doesn't have a human mind.
Well, she's one of those people where it's like, guess her age, and the whole planet guesses, and 99% of us are wrong. It's like in flux. Then that could be a part of the AI alien sort of thing.
It does, like, there's a weird sort of like uncanny valley look about her, and I don't know if it's just like she's overexposed or something, or she's got this weird focus thing going on with her camera or whatever. But it's like, yeah,
way too much eyeliner.
Yeah.
So I'm going to deputize Critical Drinker to write this new Bond novel.
I can do that.
The World War II intro into MI5.
What would you name it? It has to have a nice name.
Has to have a nice name.
I don't know off the top of my head.
Turing is my friend.
Yeah,
like a single word, just like really nice. I have nothing on top of my head either.
Yeah.
I did like this one as well. In reality, the doggo is glued to the ceiling, and Drinker just rotated the camera 180 degrees. It does explain his strange posture.
Yep.
He always does this every time the camera's on him.
Yeah, it seems that way.
He's just an exhibitionist at heart, I suppose. But yeah, that was the rumors, I guess, around Christopher Nolan. Like, as we've said here, like, because we think it's a good idea and it's
never going to have
legs, it will clearly not happen.
He would be perfect for it, though. Perfect. Like Dunkirk, Oppenheimer, all that. But just take that, give it the Inception.
He's also
action.
a Brit.
Amazing. It'd be amazing.
He's a Brit. He gets, he knows the culture.
Yeah, a bit of British sensibilities.
Yep.
But yeah, as we all know, the WGA strike has ended this week. Happy days if you're a writer in Hollywood.
Great.
Perhaps not so much if you're a consumer, because the things that they've conceded on the studios really don't seem like it's going to raise the quality of the product that they're producing. The biggie was having a minimum number of writers in the writer room, and they wanted that number bumped up. So yeah, just giving people stuff to do, regardless of whether they're contributing anything good. It's just having more people on hand. I mean, Paul, you've worked in the industry for a long time. I guess you understand the issues at stake more than the rest of us. Like, what's your take on the strike and the resolution to it?
Well, I can't talk to the length of the strike. There have been people who have said that a lot of the bits and pieces in the final proposal were worked out quite a while ago, and why people didn't tighten their belts and finish it off earlier. That's really the big question between all the powers that be, whether it's the WGA or the AMTP, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But I took a look at the summary, and the writers have come out great, and it doesn't look like the producers were fighting it that badly. Now, off the top, just so you know where people started, the initial WGA proposals, they wanted a $429 million value deal. The initial AMPTP offer was $86 million, and they settled on $233 million. So about halfway, just from in terms of the total deal. But I'm more familiar with the Canadian contracts, but the stuff in here is like absolutely reasonable. I mean, I didn't think it was bad for either side. I read it. I'm going, yeah, okay, that makes sense. That's good. That's not painful. Oh, they've given the writers, the ability to audit what the numbers are for streaming shows. Oh, and if it hits certain targets, like 20% of the total viewership of any particular streamer, you're going to get a really significant bump up in pay. Wow. I was really quite amazed on how decent this contract is.
There is quite a strict confidentiality element, though, too. So anyone hoping that, well, since they're divulging streaming numbers to the unions, we might actually learn what they are, then no, the contract is very quite specific on those must be kept strictly confidential to the union. So higher chance of them leaking, I guess.
Of course.
The audience and the consumer is still not going to be able to get a sense of how these things are actually performing.
But do we really need to know those numbers? I mean, it's, the people who are getting paid need to know them bet more than us.
Well, I think it would be helpful.
I would
to
love
know
to know how many people watch She-Hulk.
Yeah, well, I think how many times you've heard a studio come out and say, I mean, I think they did it with Velma, didn't they? So it's HBO Max's #1 animated original premiere. And so, well, you're making a big advert claim there. And in a bid to get more people to watch it, you're telling us that it is quite popular. Amazon did much the same thing with Rings of Power. If you're going to make that part of your advertising campaign, then yeah, as a consumer, I do kind of want to know where you're getting your numbers from. Are these actually real, or are they being manufactured very creatively to boost the impression of the show that you really want to make buck? And yeah, I would like to see those figures. Whether or not we need to know them, of course, it's up to everybody else, but I would like to know them.
Well, Nielsen is getting better, and Samba is getting better, and as the streaming services, which don't seem to be disappearing. To me, I had mentioned a long time ago that the biggest sticking point was the fact that the beautiful, well-greased conveyor belt of money-making, remuneration for all these different properties went up front, movies to DVD or VHS, and then onto TV, and then into the remainder bin. I mean, we were just used to the chugging along of that money-making machine. It was easier for the studios and the unions to kind of grasp just where the money was. Although, yeah, there were sneaky accounting practices, of course. But now with streaming, it's still a weird thing that isn't really making money for anybody except for maybe Netflix and Hulu. So to me, that's a weird part of this entire process, and they're not going away. In fact, they've created an alliance called the SIA to lobby governments to make sure that specifically they don't get the same kind of treatment as internet providers and YouTube, because they've got different rules that they got to work under, and they don't want the streaming services to be brought under those internet rules.
Right. Yeah. I guess not all streaming services are exactly flourishing. Like we know Disney Plus is losing subscribers.
Disney hasn't made a profit yet.
Yeah, I mean, because it was going to be the next big thing for them, and yeah, it was great while everyone was locked down and they couldn't go out. But now that movie theaters have reopened and people are going out again, it's just like, well, no, it's not really taken off the way you hoped. I think
the existence of Disney Plus has ruined Disney's movies as well, because no one really goes to watch them anymore. You just wait till you can stream them.
Yeah,
Little Mermaid had the biggest opening on Disney Plus right now, but like it was a flop in the box office.
Yeah,
and all the Pixar movies are the same way. No one's watching them, right? And it just keeps happening.
Well, I think with their movies as well, they're not event movies anymore.
No,
particularly in their case. So, like, there isn't a great drive to go see them. It's like, with the Marvel films, there used to be that. Like, you had to go and see it when it hit the movie theaters because, like, everyone was going to be talking about it. Now they're not. And so, like, you can quite easily just leave it until it hits streaming.
I think they're not event movies because they're just bad movies. They could have been.
There is that.
Money. Only three that made money past Endgame.
It's going to be interesting.
Just Spider-Man No Way Home, Doctor Strange 2, Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Everything else is pretty much flopped or done average.
So, but that's why I don't understand why they're getting into bed with each other to be an industry lobby group, a trade group, when maybe like Netflix would just wait them out and let them all die. I mean, so the only two groups that are not in this trade organization is Apple and Amazon. So it's a weird. It's funny that all these money bags get together over martinis and decide, hey, we're enemies, but let's have a trade group. Sure, Chauncey, that sounds like a great idea.
Do you believe
that tackling bigger issues, I suppose, like rather than just competing against each other, because that's like an existential kind of threat if the entire streaming platform or the streaming model is under threat. Well, none of them can function then.
Yeah, so this is why I'm really curious what SIA is, what they're up to, because it's not a very strong organization from a financial perspective.
I mean, the great news, though, I guess, is that late night talk shows are going to come back. Everyone's thrilled about that, aren't they? Like, have you missed Jimmy Fallon? Have you missed Bill Maher?
Yes.
I still can't believe they had people in like Pfizer vaccine costumes dancing. I can't believe that's a real thing that happened.
That was a low point in our culture.
I still watch Mar. I'll still watch Mar, but I have not watched anybody else.
Yeah.
I did kind of laugh at the whole like when people compared Drew Barrymore and coming back from, like right at the 11th hour, just like destroying her reputation by trying to like go across the picket lines to start her show up again, like literally a few days before they reached the deal, and getting all this heat when she totally didn't have to. Yeah, she was compared to like the family at the end of The Mist. They all, like they commit suicide and it's like just before they get rescued.
But the actors strike is that the Film Actors Guild is still striking, and one of the reasons for that is they have generally been a lot more vociferous than the Writers Guild have. Like all the quotes coming out from their particular meetings, because it actually does sound much like the Film Actors Guild from Team America in the way that they conduct themselves. But so like the head of the negotiations is also an actor and prone to giving these huge, very bombastic speeches comparing their strike to the fall of the Bastille, for example.
You mean the nanny?
It's like,
you mean
the nanny? Calm down a little bit.
Yeah, but which you can understand why that's not very conducive to negotiations. But there's also the difference, and it goes back to the streaming thing as well, because the demands are very different. So the writers are effectively demanding higher residuals and higher minimums. And actually, if you compare their original demands with the ones that they've got, they have pretty well succeeded on every single headline item they wanted. Whereas the actors, as I understand it, are campaigning still for a much higher share of just revenue. And so that's like irrespective of profit, and none of these films are making profit anyway, you will pay us a lot more money. And I can't really see the studios backing down on that one anytime soon, because that would actually cost them. The writers' demands, by and large, most of them seem reasonable enough, with the exception of the minimum staffing requirements one, which they probably is one of the biggest victories they had, because the studios originally didn't even counter-propose when they said that. They just said no.
But that's been halved. That's been halved.
It's only half. It's not half because they wanted minimum of four senior writers and then 6 actual writers, and now it's gone to 4 senior writers and 3 actual writers. It's like it's almost half, but not quite. That's a terrible idea, but at least it's not too expensive. But it does mean that you're probably going to get fewer new writers on the scene because it costs more to hire them.
And then the writers, they're splitting the budget. They're not really negotiating their own individual salaries. It's that the writing room gets a budget and then they split it.
Well, but they're not talking about a base salary of like 14 grand a week for these writers.
There's a base.
Because it was 10 before, now it's like gone up by about 40%, so it's like 14 grand per week. Man, if I was making 14 grand per week,
that'd be nice.
Absolute dog shit, like I would be a happy guy.
I made a whole video about that, the whole like you get what you pay for kind of a thing. Like, people got really mad when McKenyu from One Piece got paid 1.76 million for the One Piece live action show, and Tatiana Maslany got 450,000 for She-Hulk. It's like, well, no shit, she did.
Yeah.
I know who I'd rather invest in.
Yeah, exactly. Like when you think about it, like McKenyu made more money on One Piece than the rest of his main cast combined. But
I mean, I guess
it makes sense.
Part of the problem is he's not well known in the West, but he's a big star in Japan, isn't he?
Correct. Yep.
Huge. Yeah. 5 million on Instagram alone. Like when you pay that money, you're not just paying for him, you're paying for his whole audience to come watch. Right. Yeah. So, and it worked obviously because One Piece was a huge success. So good for them.
But for the actor's point of view, as we mentioned, they're demanding. Some of their demands did overlap with the WGA, which is fair enough. But like they are expecting a lot more in terms of revenue and pay increases. There was a lot going on in terms of like audition tapes and stuff, like how they want guarantees around not having to do too much for their auditions because they can become quite time consuming and they're quite open to abuse as well, like for obvious reasons. So there's things like that. And I don't know realistically how much longer they'll stay out on strike. I know they're scheduled to
expand it. So they're now threatening to expand it to cover video game studios as well, which is not a good idea. I mean, they really don't have very much leverage where video game studios are concerned. Like maybe for most video game studios, well, they are much, but that's the point. They're much more internationalized. Not all of them have the same collective bargaining agreements that film studios have. But even if they do, there's nothing really to prevent most game studios from just hiring overseas or filling in the gaps with scratch audio until the strike's over. So like I don't really see that they have much leverage in that one. And it's questionable how much leverage they have with the rest of it either, given that the writers wanted to have, in part of their strike agreement, this contractual right to support the strikes of other unions, and the studios vetoed that, and that's now not in there. So the writers can't go on strike in solidarity with the actors anymore. So actually a lot of production can carry on going.
Although they've been asked to do so.
They've been asked to do so, but they have no contractual right to do so. So if they were to do that, they would be in breach, as I understand it anyway, of their employment contracts going forward.
Hasn't been signed yet, Platoon.
Not yet. No, they could still reject it. And then the other interesting one was the AI aspect of it as well, because they've reached an agreement on that where they've apparently drawn up these regulations that prevent AI being used to source scripts, rewrite source material, be classed as source material. And the Writers Guild, I think, has a say on whether writers' materials are allowed to be used to train AI to write things in future. So like that overlaps a bit with the actors, because the actors are also campaigning on AI for image rights and things like that.
Yeah, for the most part, AI has been expunged from the writing game.
For now, anyway.
For now.
It's negotiated every 3 years. So let's see where we're at 3 years from now when AI's had all that extra time to advance.
The interesting thing is that the Actors Guild has always been the most aggressive of the unions. The WGA has been pretty staid over the years. And it's always the actors.
Well, it makes sense, right? All actors really have are their presence. If that gets taken, what do they have? Nothing.
Yes, they could always go on the shopping channel hawking jewelry.
I'm just waiting for it to go through, and then Captain America starring Chris Evans 50 years from now when he's long dead, and just put his AI face over someone and he's just there, and that's it. What's gonna happen.
Well, this is part of it, but it's like for the big A-listers, like it's not really a problem. They're already set for life, and they're in such demand that this sort of thing isn't going to affect them. But for the people who are at the lower end of the spectrum, like the day players or the background people or whatever, I can see how that's an issue, where it's like I just appeared in one freaking TV show or something, and they've got my likeness, and now they can just use it in any other production that they ever put forward. So like I never get paid to do any more acting, essentially. I can see how that's a problem, and it's a bit of an unfair exploitation of a person's likeness. So
yeah, it's a real challenge with the reduced number of shows. There is some kind of formula with the streamers, as if they go into 20, 22 episode seasons that are more network oriented. Plus, going back to the Writers Guild, they've got this deal with regards to SVOD, TVOD, and AVOD, that there's different pay opportunities. I'm not entirely, maybe Platoon knows it, but I don't know in terms of the Actors Guild whether they are going to be able to get residuals based on SVOD, TVOD, or AVOD splits. So those are subscription videos on demand, transactional videos on demand, and advertising-based videos on demand. That's how the acronyms go. So there's a whole new world that is going to be rolled out. I mean, the streamers want transactional videos in there, sort of like pay-per-view boxing. They want to add that. So even though you have a subscription to Netflix or Disney or something, some event comes out, you're going to have to pay separately for that show. How do you guys feel about that?
I think it makes sense. I used to work in restaurants. So back when I used to work there, for example, this restaurant I worked at was a really huge building, and they used to show pay-per-view events like boxing and stuff. And they stopped showing it because, for example, at least when I worked there, they had to pay for the pay-per-view per square foot of the restaurant, how big it was. Like times that with money.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was very expensive to show like a UFC fight, for example. So I think it makes sense to pay extra if you're going to watch a pay-per-view event or something like that, like a one-time off thing. That makes sense to me. They're even adding commercials to things like Amazon Prime soon, unless you go up by like $3, I think it is. It's going to become the norm.
Well, that's AVOD. But let's say they do a straight to streaming movie, for example, Little Mermaid. And at the very beginning, it's kind of eventy. You know what I mean? Does it make sense to you that they pay extra at the very beginning to just squeeze some more cash out of people for a Little Mermaid? That's what I'm asking.
I don't think so. No. I would say no. Yeah. No, then you're right then. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't pay anything to watch Little Mermaid, but that's just me.
No, but I'm using that as that's my bad example. That you find a property that maybe isn't quite good enough to hit the theaters. Although I don't know, and everything should go to the theaters. And anyway, I don't know whether there's a second tier movie. Apple seems to be coming out with a product, a lot of stuff that's going into theaters first. So
yeah. Well, I mean, I know the actors are going to be sitting. Apparently, the actors' union is going to be sitting down with the producers on Monday. That's when the next round of negotiations begins. So, it'll be interesting to see what comes out of that. I suppose it's probably going to drag on for at least a week of further negotiations because it seems like they are pretty far apart on a deal. It might, conceivably, the talks could just collapse and they go right back to square one again. You just don't really know. Like, it certainly wasn't productive last time. I guess there's more pressure on them now that the writers have reached the deal.
And the actors in many ways are in the worst position because when you had a season of shows, like 22, 26 shows, just remember the character actors that would bounce in between different series. Like, oh, here's that guy again. Oh, now he's on NCSI. Oh, now he's on Bewitched. Oh, now he's on, these people that now, if the streamers are only doing 6 to 10 shows a year, then, that poor character actor could end up having one job because, we don't want to see that guy again in another series because it's only 6 shows. We can't really hide the guy. Like he's too well known now because he's a character actor. He's too not well known, but recognizable. So it's tough on the actors right now, not having the TV networks pumping out 26 episodes a year. So there's a lot of bad math for being an actor right now.
Also, COVID showed us just like what happens to actors when you deny them publicity. They go mad. They're not normal human beings. So they start like singing Imagine and doing all that incredibly nonsense.
They all did kind of lose their minds during the lockdowns, and it's just like it's like a dog. If you don't give it enough attention, you don't play with it or whatever. Like they start acting out.
That's what we need is a line of actor chew toys.
Yeah. Just to keep them amused.
Yeah. Actor squeaky toys. Here we go. Come on, gal. Here we go. Come on.
Just before I go into the next thing, I just wanted to do a few super chats. Just
bring them on
so that we don't lose our way with it. JS Pena says, "Are you ever going to review Ghostbusters 2 and talk about how it isn't as bad as people say that it was? I mean, we've been waiting since 2021. Well, this is the right time of year. I've been waiting for the right time, and this could be it. So, yeah." Look out for October, basically. Nightmares in Paradise says, thoughts on Arrested Development, my favorite show. I liked it. I think it certainly went up and down towards the end, and didn't love the revival of it. No. But at its peak, it was some good comedy, man. I really liked it.
And it started on Fox before it moved over to Netflix.
Right.
And the guys that directed some of the episodes directed Avengers Endgame, Infinity War, and all that too. Just in case anyone wants to know that.
Did not know that.
Yeah. Joe Russo and Anthony.
Yeah.
They did a lot of community episodes as well, I think.
Yep.
Is that where they got their start then?
Yep.
Stuff like Arrested Development. That's pretty cool. Ace Degenerate said, "Hail Open Bar. There's been a rumor that Rachel Zegler has been fired. Any idea if it's true?" I think it's just a rumor.
It's just a rumor, yeah, but
it would be hilarious if it was, but I think it's just one of those stupid things.
From what I've heard, she's been fired from Snow White. She's been fired from a potential
Paddington.
She's fired from too. Well, she got replaced, whatever. And no, she's been removed from Pirates of the Caribbean's reboot, allegedly.
That movie's in flux at the moment, anyway, as far as I know. But yeah, man, to fire her from Snow White, they would have to reshoot the entire movie at this point, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I don't buy that.
It's in the can, basically.
I assume they're just gonna like have her in that movie, and then if they make a sequel, they'll just move on to something else. But that movie's dead on arrival, no matter what they do.
I would love it. I would love it if they cast her in Madeline.
Yeah, Snow White's That movie's dead. There's no way they can. I feel so bad because the guy that's directing it is Mark Webb. He's the guy that did Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2.
Right.
Can only imagine how he feels.
Yeah, it's just you're at the helm of the Titanic after it's hit the iceberg, and in this case, the iceberg seems to be like tethered to your ship because Rachel Zegler's just done so much damage to this movie.
They're screwed. They're screwed so badly, and the movie's apparently $300 million. That's how much they spent for the whole time making it. That's almost as much as Infinity War. I don't know how
they spend it on.
I don't know.
They certainly didn't spend everything on costumes.
Every environment's going to be green screened at that point, I'm guessing.
It's not even dwarves,
forest and...
Now it's magical creatures because they don't want to have little people in it because that if Peter Dinklage got mad about it or something stupid.
Anyone get invited to the pre-screening of that sci-fi movie they did for $80 million? What's it called?
The Creator.
The Creator. A lot of buzz on that.
Yeah, I'm going to go see it tomorrow. So apparently it's meant to be quite good. A few people have emailed me that have seen it, and they said it was great. So
Gareth Edwards, right?
Yeah,
he did Rogue One.
He did.
He got let go.
Yeah, he got replaced by Tony Gilroy, right?
Right.
Who then went on to make Andor. Lots of connections here.
Oh my god, I tried watching Andor with my girlfriend, and we couldn't get through that show. I don't know, we just couldn't do it.
It's a slow burn.
She's not a big Star Wars fan anyway, but she likes stuff that has cute stuff in it. So we watch Mandalorian fine because of Grogu, and she likes Ahsoka because of those little what are they called? Naughties, little like crab people. She thinks they're cute.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. But we could not watch Andor. We got to episode like 4 or 5, and we just gave up. We're like, we can't watch this. It's too
crab
slow.
people, yay and or nay.
I would honestly like, even if she's not so into it, like maybe you give it another chance yourself, because I think if you can get to the end, like you'll get something pretty good out of it.
My girlfriend just texted me too. She said Andor sucked ass. I'd rather die than finish it. So there you go.
Critical. The burial scene at the last show, that was quite suspect, I thought.
Which show? Sorry,
Andor. The last show.
Oh right, yeah.
The mother got the funeral.
Mm-hmm.
That was that. In many ways, I thought that was the worst of all the shows. But anyway,
I wouldn't know. I didn't finish it, so I couldn't tell you.
Drink, did you invite aliens onto this podcast, or are we on here? Body snatchers or some shit?
I think if your experience of Star Wars is basically the movies and the sort of high action, just silliness of the TV shows on Disney Plus, then Andor is going to be a tough watch for you, because it's so tonally different from those, but there's so much more to be gleaned from it. Like it's a much more rewarding show.
I love the world. I would love them to bring that mature Star Wars world back. But the lead, what's the guy's name? Luna?
Diego Luna.
I found him. I don't want to go through that. I don't want to argue over it, but I found him to be tedious. So
I don't blame you for that. I don't blame anybody for finding the show boring, but like made it through this episode 7 of Ahsoka, but couldn't make it past halfway through Andor. It's like, well, maybe it makes sense.
Ahsoka is like going to a carnival and getting sick on cheese crullers and just like and you're just enjoying the rides, and you find yourself on the Ferris wheel and you're throwing up on the people below you. That's like, I got to keep watching Ahsoka. It's got that weird terribleness.
I still feel like you have half-hour queues for each of those moments, though.
I was about to say, yeah, it's like waiting a couple hours to get on each ride with Ahsoka. And you're surrounded by carnies that have got their arms folded and they're frowning at you.
Yes, you need to be the right height to watch Ahsoka.
I would say the best thing that Disney's done with Star Wars since they've gotten it probably would be like the ending of Rogue One. That part, that for me was really great. And parts of Mandalorian. Ahsoka's, I'm not really crazy about it. We're just kind of watching it because we feel like we're obligated to. But it's not.
I mean, I think if I had to pick between the movies that Disney have made for Star Wars, I guess Rogue One would be.
Rogue One would win.
The one I'd put at top, but
it's not a difficult fight.
No, it's not. No. I remember seeing Last Jedi with my sister when it came out, and we were just looking at each other like, "What the hell are we watching? Like, what is this?"
Yeah.
That movie was
Bro,
just not
The
good.
Last Jedi. Now Smokey's left.
Yeah. What's going on with you, Smokey? He'll be back. Don't worry. He's just he gets grumpy sometimes.
But if the creator hits big, then Gareth Edwards is going to have a nice little "told you so."
Yeah, I mean, it's a bad. I don't know if it's a bad time of year, but it's a slightly awkward one where it feels like a lot of people aren't going to be that motivated to go to the movies right now. I don't know, like it's a weird sort of time.
What's even coming out this fall? Like I don't even.
Saw. Hello.
Which one? Sorry.
Saw 10.
Oh yeah, no, I'm good. I just saw Talk to Me. That was pretty
10.
I was just amused by that the 10th one is coming out. Like, guys, come on.
Apparently, it's the highest rated too. Saw 10 of
Really?
like the whole series.
Really?
But I haven't seen it obviously. But yeah.
Is that like member berries, or because a film series at 10 has to have member berries, right?
I mean, it's got Jigsaw back, so like that's the biggest member berry of all. It's like he got killed in like the third movie.
He came back in the fourth one and the fifth one, and then they brought him back for Jigsaw.
And then they made the Chris Rock one.
No, he didn't come back in that one.
That one was bad too.
That was the worst one. Actor, I can't remember what his name is. Is it like Tobias or Tobin Bell? That's the one. Yeah,
yeah, he's great. He's the best thing Saw has as a franchise.
I mean, well, he must just be sitting there like, yeah, I'm just gonna get the call again. Like every time I do the movie that's meant to be my last one, it's like they'll be back and they'll give me another offer.
Oh, I'm sure he's made a shit ton off Saw as a franchise.
Yeah,
and fuck it, yeah. We had a good old EFAP. As far as we're concerned, they should have made it so that a lightning bolt hit his grave and resurrected him.
Yeah, why not?
Style. Nobody cares about the continuity
no one cares.
of Saw in a serious manner. Like, you'll be fine. Everyone would love it if you brought him back like that.
Yeah, I don't watch. I don't watch horror movies.
Why not? They're great. Well, they're not great.
I get way too immersed in them.
But what about The Thing? You've seen that, right?
Yes, I saw the original, not the second one.
I love The Thing. Oh, it's so good.
Nobody talks about the new one. Fuck that.
I mean,
I did go to one horror movie in, I think it was the Amityville Horror in Detroit. And the audience was, I don't know, it was an accident where it was almost entirely black. And that was fun because everyone was going, "Don't go in down there. What you doing? Hey, someone's going to come up behind you. Whoa, he's popped up behind." And it was just this people talking all the way through it. I went, "Whoa, this is wild." Don't go in the basement. Don't go in that basement.
See, when you get an audience that just won't shut the fuck up, that's when you're like, "Yep, that's why I enjoy home cinema."
Yes,
but in this case, it was a cultural experience. I'd never,
That's like when I saw Get Out in theaters.
Oh, okay.
And when the ending of that movie happens with the police car, and everyone in the crowd just goes, "Oh no!" If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about because of the implications of it. That movie's great too.
Yeah.
So I don't go to see horror movies. My girlfriend dragged me to see Alien, which I consider a horror movie.
Oh,
and when what's his name was under the dripping water around the chains, and the light was shining down on him, I'm going, man, the alien's gonna fucking pick your head up, man. Get away, man. I was like, I couldn't stand it, and it just tink, clink, tink. Tink, tink, kink, kink, kink. It was a great.
Dude, it sounds like you should watch way more horror. It gives you some visceral
horror's like
don't watch the Saw series because it's like that's not even horror. That's just torture porn. Yeah,
The only movie you should never watch is Martyrs. Never watch Martyrs.
Never.
Oh god, yeah.
Don't watch that movie. That movie's like oof. That one's bad.
mean, yeah,
it's a good movie, but it's like really brutal to watch.
No, instead, watch *Malignant*. You'll have a great time.
Oh,
with that.
Another comedy, yeah.
That one. See, that's the one I watched with my girlfriend, and we couldn't tell if it was a comedy or not. To have the whole time watching.
We still can, yeah.
And then that movie's twist is like batshit crazy.
I'm writing it down.
Yeah. Actually, if you want a decent horror movie on Netflix, watch His House. That one's pretty good. That's about a refugee couple that comes to Britain, and like something follows them from where they're from, and that movie has a really good twist too. I don't want to spoil it, obviously, but that one's pretty good too.
Fair dues.
Yeah.
Well,
Straw Dogs was sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to do a few more super chats before we move on to the next thing. Mint20 says, very disappointed to hear about the end of the writer's strike. Well, I mean, we all are. We're getting a lot of amusement out of that, but you know, such is life. They've reached a deal for now. Not Kevin Feige says, thoughts on Michael Keaton's Birdman?
Oh, I like it.
I thought it was a good movie.
Yeah. One of the criticisms it gets, and I guess I agree with it, but I'm not sure how I feel about it, is that it's not subtle. It's like, I get the point of it. I think everyone does. And it's just like, is that a problem? I don't know. It's hard to say. Because it very much repeats itself in terms of what it's going for. I really like it as a meta movie, and I think it's actually a glorious piece of artwork to have, considering he did The Flash afterward.
Yeah.
Like, you should watch it in continuity with Batman 89, Batman Returns, Birdman, The Flash. That's a story, those 4 movies.
I just like Michael Keaton in general. Like, I watched The Founder recently, and he was fantastic in that.
Yeah.
Just such a compelling presence on screen. I think he's
a really, really great actor at his best. And Birdman is an example of that. I would say he's trying his ass off. And then you watch The Flash, it's like,
he's even good in
you want to
Spider-Man.
get nuts
As the Vulture. I thought he was great in that too.
Oh, I
he was good as Vulture. Yeah, he was good.
That prom scene.
Oh
yeah. That was actually, that was pretty good.
He's just an actor that has paid his dues, knows his craft. It's like watching Michael Caine in his prime, where he just never did anything bad. Like, the movies might have been bad, but like, it's just an old shoe, and you just so much enjoy watching what he's doing.
Michael Caine's great in Austin Powers.
Yeah,
I love
he slips right the fuck in. It's amazing.
With that one line, he's like, I took a Viagra, got stuck in my neck, and that's why it's stiff.
Average Student said, Drinker, who would you choose to date, Tatiana or Lady Dimitrescu? Lady Dimitrescu is like 8 feet tall or something, which is probably a bit much even for me to handle.
Yeah,
so I might go for Tatiana. I know where I stand with her. They knew what they were doing when they made Lady D, though.
100%.
Biggest part of the trailers for sure.
Speaking of Austin Powers, the scene where in Ahsoka where they let Shin go for no reason at all kind of reminded me of the Austin Powers scene with his son, where he goes, "Just kill him, Dad! Like, give me the gun, give me the gun! I'm gonna kill him!" And I went, "Oh, that's what the scene where Shin, just let her go. What? I can kill her right here."
Oh, we'll get to that. Don't you worry.
Yeah.
But before we get to Ahsoka, I was going to talk a little bit about Disney. This came about last week, actually, so I'm only just catching up with it. But Bob Iger was giving a presentation to his investors down in Florida, and mentioned that he's really keen to quiet the noise around the culture war. Because it's bad for business, as it turns out. You know, you don't say, Bob, maybe the billions of dollars in lost box office revenue and your collapsing share price probably clued you into that fact. But yeah, it's kind of a funny one. As Gary mentions, you know, you didn't just get pulled into this old culture war here. You were a 5-star general leading the charge in it.
Yep.
So I don't think you can suddenly claim the high ground and say, like, yeah, we need to quiet things down. You very much stoked the fires. Now they're burning down your entire company.
I think what's going to happen to Disney is they're going to get bought by Apple. That's the only solution I can see that's happening.
I don't know what's going to happen to them. Like how much they're even going to be worth by that point. But I just think it's an interesting change of attitude, I suppose, and it makes me think, well, are you even sincere about doing any of this stuff? Do you want to just get back to making apolitical content that's just about entertainment, or are you just going to be a bit more subtle about the stuff that you try and work into your movies and TV shows? Because I think it's going to be the latter.
Dan DiDio used to be the head of DC Comics. He was recently on a podcast on bounding into comics, and he just flat out says that, like, you know, corporations don't care. They don't have morals. They just care about money. So they're going to push everything based on what they can see is politically correct. And that's it. So it's the same thing with Disney.
And my question to you guys is, like, what do you think he means by that? What is it that a movie is going? How is a product going to change based on what he just said? What are your thoughts?
I think everything that's happened to Disney recently, it's all Bob Iger's fault. Like, he greenlit everything, and then he went, okay, I'm going to retire. Leaves Bob Chapek, comes in, takes the fall for everything, comes back thinking he's a savior, and Disney's been destroyed by everything that Bob Iger has greenlit. Everything.
But
like,
what does
Marvel's
this
ruined
change?
too.
But what does toning down taking the heat down on the culture wars? How is that going to... I heard that all the Fantastic Four are going to be women now.
I heard that Susan Storm's going to be the main character now because of course she is.
I think stuff like that is almost outside the purview of what he would consider the culture war. That is just the creative decisions they make in their content. So I don't think they're going to change any of that stuff. I think a lot of what he'd referenced here was in relation to the parental rights bill or whatever it was called in Florida, where Disney interjected themselves into that. Yeah, the Don't Say Gay bill, whatever they want to call it. They interjected themselves into that against Bob Chapek's best judgment. And they essentially went to war with the governor of Florida. Whether they knew it or not, he had the ability to massively screw up their business, where he can just take away their special tax exemption, their Reedy Creek development, which basically means they have massively increased their operating costs. They don't get exempt from tax in Florida now, and so they poked the bear, and he bit them back, and they didn't need to do any of this stuff. So I think this is what he's referencing. It's like, we just are not going to directly involve ourselves in political bills political issues.
Which, funnily enough, is actually what they began by doing. So from what I recall, it's a bit of a hazy, distant memory at this point, but they actually bounced themselves into the reaction to the parental rights bill, because they were criticized in the first place for not having publicly come out against it by people within the company who said, well, this is indicative of your lack of support for the alphabet community. And then they panicked and said, well, no, actually, look at our lobbying records. We're in government every single day. We speak to the governor all the time. We're lobbying for everything. We're definitely on your side. And then that created the big counter backlash, which is, well, no, actually, most of us would rather you were not doing any of that stuff. So it was a mistake based on a blunder, based on a mistake, which they're now still living with. A lot of the Florida stuff is still a matter of the lawsuit. But I think in tandem with this general wish to quiet things down, they originally sued or countersued Ron DeSantis on, I think, 7 or 8 different measures relating to his actions with the Reedy Creek districts, and they've dropped 7 or all but one of those. The only one they're now fighting is the suggestion that actually DeSantis has infringed their free speech rights because corporations are people, which is not actually it's beyond the realms of possibility, because he has made it quite clear that he also has a vendetta against them, and their argument is that vendetta goes above and beyond your authority as a governor. That is an infringement on First Amendment rights. That's the one they're fighting, but they've dropped all the other ones that could be conceived as political or in any way superfluous to that core claim. And I think that's probably all part of this grander move, just to, outside of films, just to make Disney much quieter as a whole. Fight the development if you can, but don't do that on a political level. Just do that on a constitutional law level, and people will suddenly, hopefully, stop associating us with the worst of the radical sort of wokey blowhards.
But the problem is, they have to revamp what they put into their movies as well, if they want to escape that image, because it's become common knowledge. He's now getting asked questions Bob Iger, he's getting asked questions in interviews by mainstream news organizations, like, is Disney a woke company? And I normally hesitate to use that word, but those, I'm quoting them on this one, and he's having to fight those accusations now and say, well, no, we're just an entertainment company, and we've been around for 100 years and we value good storytelling. No, you don't.
No, they don't.
But yeah, now that the fact that it's out there now, and it's now an association with what they make, whether it's movies, TV shows, whatever, they have to do something now to break away from that association. Otherwise, people are just going to judge them on that, and it's hurting their bottom line. Outside of the direct political conflict that they might have with Ron DeSantis or whoever, it's their general product now. It's tainted by this.
It's hurting their parks.
Oh yeah,
it's hurting everything.
Oh, yeah.
Their brand, their stock prices in the gutter. You know, they're losing billions of dollars. Like, this has been a horrendous year for them at the box office.
Oh yeah.
Pretty much every movie they're putting out is failing now. Partly it's because they're genuinely bad, but partly as well because they've got now this reputation as a company that produces, content with a very
say for what it is. Woke garbage.
woke content, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's what people are accusing them of. Like, Disney just makes woke garbage now.
And it's especially bad for them as well. Other companies would suffer, I think, had they done much the same, but maybe not have suffered to the same degree. Disney is in this unique position as having the storied legacy in family entertainment. And the one group that they seem to be pissing off the most is families. People are quite precious about their children, it turns out. And when Disney seemed to be intervening in certain political questions which have to do with the upbringing of children, then it impacts them all the more, because all of a sudden their entire reason for existing as this trusted family brand is now undercut. That impacts people's want to go to parks. It impacts people's want to see films in the first place, never mind whether the films themselves are good, which by and large they're not. And then when they do watch the films, every now and then they'll find that actually the films are pushing a very similar message that a lot of the audience doesn't particularly like. And I don't know if you can row back from that. Once that reputation, it took decades to establish that reputation. It took about a year to destroy it. And now that reputation's gone, I really don't know if you can win it back. Certainly not in the short term.
And they clearly lie all the time too, because they'll add scenes where same-sex people have kiss, and then they'll conveniently remove it when it goes to China. They did the same thing with the Star Wars poster. Where's John Boyega on the poster? He's nowhere.
Yeah,
when they released Black Panther, the same thing.
So it's essentially like, whenever you start doing this stuff, whenever you involve yourself in this stuff, it's a losing game. Because either you're going to piss off your foreign markets who aren't embracing that kind of thing, you try to appeal to them, well, the news is going to get out that you've been doing this and you're not really committed to this stuff. And so the people on this side of the pond who you're trying to pander to will turn against you, because they're not particularly loyal to anything, really, apart from their own causes. And so you've made a deal with the devil here, and eventually, it's all going to go tits up. And it has, because you're never going to appease this crowd. They're not even an audience. They're not a demographic. They're just a bunch of people, generally, who are terminally online, who just get offended by everything.
What was the last Pixar movie that actually made profit? I'm like struggling to think of it, because they made Strange World that bombed horribly, and it was full of identity politics. Pretty much, I think Elemental may have made a bit of money.
I think overseas. Elemental weirdly had legs, because it had a disastrous opening, but I think it actually did better in the long term. But even then, it wasn't a huge money maker for them.
What was the movie with all the emotions in it?
Oh, Inside Out.
Yeah,
that one I think was successful.
But that was kind of before they kind of started all this, though. That's why that one's
that was a good few years ago now. Yeah.
Like when you think of Disney from like I would say about 2010 to about 2019. Yeah, there are a little bit of woke things here and there, sure, but like generally speaking, they were a money printing machine. They're making so much money.
No question. And one of the things that's really come into focus, and this is kind of a side thing, is that recently in Canada we had this Million Parent March that just wanted to get the woke shit out of the schools, and it just solidified for me and made very clear that what this left, I hate using that term, but let's say the wokerati, whatever, the cultural Marxists, they just hate families.
Yep.
And that seems to be the thing that ties together everything. They don't want to show families in movies. They don't want to show nuclear families in television shows. Haven't helped them to show a competent father.
That drives me nuts in everything. And the fact that fathers are always
absent or dumb or whatever. And the thing is, it's just now with this parent march against the schools, and oh my God, the things that the school boards and everything they said about parents, which I thought was really quite funny, because they called us like Nazis, homophobes, transphobes, name it, like name the phobe. And I'm thinking, okay, you need us to send our kids to your facilities so you can have a job, and you're purposely pissing us off. Like, it makes no
Just
sense.
Look at how everyone reacted to the McDonald's ad from Japan.
Right. And
so that was a weird one. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like
look,
this,
it's
this
just a nice
15-second ad. Yeah. And it's
people
just
are like,
like
oh my God, I can't. This is a happy family. I'll never have this. And they lost
yeah.
their
So
mind.
there's an entire group of people who, number one, don't like women, taking back their space because they kind of want to be in that group. And then there's a whole bunch of people who can't have families, are jealous of families. So their solution is no families.
I think the whole point of it is they want to make it so that they want to basically indoctrinate the whole younger generation to the point where they just become like they need the government to make all decisions for them. That's the way I look at it. And it's that whole, I don't want to say what organization it is, but it's the whole, you'll own nothing, you'll be genderless, you'll eat bugs, live in your pod, and then you'll be happy. And that's kind of what they want it to be like, and
sounds good to me.
Yeah, and that's what I fight back.
And you'll watch Disney to that list, and it's a perfect depiction of hell.
There you go.
Yep.
yeah.
And so that has been a clarifying moment for me, that it's a giant war against families.
Well,
families, remove masculinity, just girl bosses all the time.
What is it they say? Misery loves company. And
yeah.
So like if you're a miserable person that's got nothing going for them, it's like, well, you can either try and make yourself better to aspire to something better, or you can just drag everyone else down.
Correct. That's exactly right. Is that if I can't be happy, no one else can be.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what
work, though. So there is a sizable demographic that will go and see a film that has that message. Barbie's success is proof of that. It's impossible to be in a happy relationship as a woman. You have to be deprogrammed and de-brainwashed by the Barbie Taliban into being miserable and alone and independent. But that was really popular and really successful because it actually understood its target audience. So the success and the failure of this isn't necessarily just to do with the message. It's also, like with the Bud Light thing, are you calling your existing target audience a bunch of hillbilly backward people, frat boys who must be educated?
Yeah.
Or are you giving them something they want? People, when it's a long-established brand and people's behavior is usually quite set, it's when they start getting a message they're not expecting and they don't like that they react against it. But on the other hand, you can say exactly the same thing to a very different group of people, and lo and behold, you make $1 billion at a film. So it's not just the message.
I think with Barbie, though, it was because it's the IP so massive, Margot Robbie and all that, they had that going for them. But generally speaking, like everything that does the best is devoid of woke stuff. Like Spider-Man No Way Home made like 1 whatever billion during the pandemic.
I think as a general rule, like as you guys were saying there, like the Barbie movie understood its audience. It was marketed specifically to women. I think the problem that you've had with these, say for example, trying to convert the MCU over to the MCU or whatever, like is and making it all about the girl power.
But they didn't look like girls. Sorry, Critical.
Well, I know, but
that they turned them into men. The beauty of Barbie was they remained women. That was the big shock to everybody.
Yeah, I mean, what I was going to say is that you're taking brands like Marvel or Star Wars or even Star Trek, which are predominantly male oriented, like they're a predominantly male audience, and you're trying to bend them around a female perspective. And that's why it kept failing, because ultimately your audience isn't going to embrace that. You're going to drift further and further away from the things that attracted men to those franchises. In this case of Star Trek, it might have been the technology, the science, the thought-provoking stuff. With Star Wars, it might be the action and having a kick-ass male hero or whatever, going on the hero's journey. And with Marvel, it's just like the aspirational superhero tied in with technology or with godlike beings with amazing powers and stuff. Whatever you want to define it as, these are all things that generally appealed a bit more to men, and that's why it kept failing. They were trying to bend it around female interests. Didn't work. With Barbie, it was just purely like, okay, this is a movie by and large for women. It's going to have all feminine, female stuff in it that they like. That's why it succeeded so well. Like they didn't try and fit a square peg into a round hole.
And the question is, you had properties that worked in that male domain. They were successful. Why change it?
Yeah.
Nice doggy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
They're restless.
But I think
why change it?
Whether this has been some crazy like conspiracy, social engineering exercise, or whether it was just a greedy company trying to expand beyond their core audience, but instead of like adding a new audience in, they essentially alienated their existing one and failed to attract a new one.
Right.
Not sure. I just know it hasn't worked with Marvel, it hasn't worked with Star Wars, and it hasn't worked with Star Trek. So all these big properties have essentially just been burned because they've taken them in the wrong direction. Whether they've learned a lesson from Barbie in that we can take specifically female properties and we'll market them specifically to women instead of trying to make this homogenized thing that just appeals to everyone, or whether they, whether they actually learn that lesson or not, I don't know. But it would just, I suppose it would be a nice balance to be able to say, right, we're going to have this genre of thing, whether it's superhero, whether it's science fiction or whatever, it's going to be more targeted towards men. We're going to appeal to them because those are the people who watch it anyway. And we're going to target other movies like Barbie or similar things specifically to women. Each person, each gender gets something that they enjoy, and they don't have to try and make something that tries to appeal to everyone and just ends up alienating.
Well, I think but we split things. So we're there's always going to be movies like The Expendables, which is not targeted towards women. That's going to continue. That's not going to stop. What generally I think what we're referring to is our pop culture favorites that have been twisted and destroyed. That's really been the biggest disappointment for all of us. We spent a lot of time talking about that. But there will be movies for men and there'll be movies for women. That's not going to change. We just want our favorite movies to not get fucked up.
Unfortunately, they're all learning the wrong thing from it, though, because Barbie did so well, and now they want to make like a Polly Pocket movie where Lena Dunham is directing it or something. And that's all studios learn. Stupid.
Well, fine. Like, if you want to make it, cool. Like, I just don't take, I don't know, like, what would it be? Bloody He-Man or something like that, which they already tried to do, and they turned that into a female-led thing. Why?
They did it to everything.
It's like, it's called fucking He-Man. It was the toys that little boys played with in the 80s. Like, it's a boy thing. Okay, you can't make that a female-centric story, so leave stuff like that alone. I guess that's the point. And like Paul says, the things that we end up getting pissed off about is the pop culture stuff, the stuff that has a real cultural impact. Star Wars is probably a good example of that because it's impacted whole generations of people. And that has a huge influence over the rest of Hollywood, the success or failure of movies like that. And so that's why it's important to, I guess, make that distinction and have that separation.
I think the movie that's going to decide a lot of this future stuff about like the whole female empowerment, it's going to be the Marvels. And I don't think it's going to do well at all.
I don't.
It's going to be
I agree with you in the sense that it's probably not going to do well, but I think most of the mainstream media probably knows it's not going to do well at this point. I don't think many people are going to hitch their wagons to the Marvels now. I think the studio knows it's not going to be a hit. That's why they kept delaying it.
I wouldn't be surprised they try and forget about it soon after it comes out. Kind of like all these late DC projects.
I think Aquaman's screwed.
Yeah, that's done as well. That whole DC EU brand is just dead. But with the Marvels, I think even the director knows it's going to tank because she's already making excuses about it.
Yep.
Yeah, Nia DaCosta.
Yeah. Yep. She knows that, one, the superhero genre is dying out anyway. Two, it's a massively unpopular character that she's dealing with. And three, it's probably a shit movie that she's ended up making anyway because she works in low budget stuff. She's not. Yeah,
she did the Candyman remake.
Yeah, and to be fair, that was fine. Like, that's obviously her niche. That's what she's good at. This is not. And she probably knows that she's made a crap movie.
I have a question,
she's even made like really disparaging remarks about like, they'd be shooting stuff one day and she had no fucking clue what it was supposed to be doing in the script.
What do you think is going to replace? Like, obviously, we had different eras. We had the Western era. We had the superhero era. Like, what would be the next era? I guess. Like, what would be the next thing?
It's either going to be a return to sort of generalized action movies, action blockbusters, or video game adaptations.
Really?
I think. Yeah. This year, we've had the Mario Brothers movie. One of the I think it's second biggest box office haul of the year, behind only the Barbie movie. So that's like the movie side of things. It proves that like strong brands like that have got a massive appeal. And the Last of Us TV show, like on HBO, you know, you can say what you will about how good it was, but like it was pretty accurate to the game, and
as someone who's been
very successful critically, and I think it attracted a huge audience. So it's proven both from a TV point of view and a blockbuster movie point of view, video game adaptations can work. There's been missteps, obviously, that like the Halo TV show was kind of garbage from what I understand, but it's a process of refinement, and it proves that like there's going to end up being more and more hits rather than misses. And I think the market there is enormous. I mean, you know yourself, like the video game industry compared to Hollywood, it dwarfs it.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, I'm wondering, because they're doing the Fallout show on Amazon. That's coming soon. Actually, I think the trailer got leaked like a month ago or something for that one.
Right.
They're doing Devil May Cry on Netflix. Bunch of them.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, we've had The Witcher. Obviously, that was a failure, but
again, The Witcher makes me depressed every time I think about it.
These are all like stepping stones on the way, and I think that the more they progress, the more they'll get a feel for what works and what doesn't. And I think this is probably going to be the next big thing, because much like with comic books and superheroes, you know, there's a huge latent market there, and there's a huge backlog of amazing stories and characters that you can exploit. Which have essentially done the work for you, because Hollywood likes nothing better than just having pre-made characters and stories that they can just adapt, rather than having to take a risk on creating something entirely new. So this is perfect. It's going to be a new superhero gold rush, but it's going to be video games now.
It'd be very interesting, because I remember hearing about Amazon wanting to make Mass Effect into a TV show. Mass Effect is one of my favorite things of all time. I've 100% of the games on both Xbox and PlayStation. Love those games to death. Yes, sorry, go ahead.
No, but saying I agree.
Oh, yeah, you're too. My bad. Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
No, huge Mass Effect.
Huge Mass Effect fan. I love those games so much. I know, like
ass shots. That's what I want. Or just ass shots in leather.
Yeah, exactly.
Sexy Edie.
I'm a Liara guy myself, but and my girlfriend's a Garrus. Garrus is her guy. She loves.
I can see that.
Every woman loves Garrus. Like every single one of them all romanced him. But like if they make a Mass Effect show, that'd be good. You have Henry Cavill doing the Warhammer show. Hopefully that's good. Not exactly video games, but they've made video games about it. But still, that could be great as well.
So I have a prediction for the next big IP hit. With the success of Oppenheimer, I think we're going heavily into nuclear physics. I think we're going to get the whole dust up between Einstein and Niels Bohr. That's going to be fascinating to a lot of people. Enrico Fermi's discovery of nuclear attraction. Wow, I can hardly wait for that. And then, of course, you've got Sir Ernest Rutherford, who discovered the fact that photons can travel through a vacuum and still interact with gold foil. Like, let me tell you guys, you have not seen anything yet.
I think what Drinkers said, I believe that the future of a lot of franchises is going to be cross-media stuff. So, for example, the people who make League of Legends, Riot Games, they took League of Legends. I never really played League of Legends myself, but I have played the spin-off games that they've made, like Ruin King. There's one called Convergence, one called Mage Seeker. And then they made the TV show Arcane, which a lot of people loved.
Yeah.
I think that's what we're going to see more of going forward. I think Bungie is probably going to do the same thing with Destiny, because they got bought by Sony PlayStation. And I think they it's just like Drinker said, like there's so much built-in lore install bases with all these different IPs that they could basically tell limitless stories. Like if Destiny got a Netflix series and every episode was a different part of the universe, like one episode's about the Hive, one episode's about the Fallen, one episode's about Saint 14, all these different characters in there.
Skyrim has been talked about.
Skyrim would be amazing as a show.
That's got a fantastic
so much stuff.
And I would
love to see Destiny that actually had a backstory filled in instead of the game where it's like this tiny
imagine that though, like every single
amazing
episode, like here's one episode about the Hive and the sword logic. Here's one about the Fallen. Here's one about the collapse.
I just want to say that
my God.
I just did not feel I got enough laughter for my nuclear physics run. I'm
sorry. I'm too.
I was hoping way more laughter.
I'm imagining now that this sort of scientist Avengers movie in the style of One Piece, where they all shout out their final moves. Einstein's theory of
They should make an anime Einstein.
That'd be great.
Oppenheimer says, "I have become death." Puts a little Reaper outfit, so hitting people with the scythe.
Throws like little mini nukes at them or something.
Yeah.
What I found out is that the guy that played Einstein in Oppenheimer was he's the old
Conti.
guy. He was in Dark Knight Rises. He's the guy that helps Bruce Wayne when he's in the pit.
Oh,
Same
really?
Guy. Yeah, it's the guy.
Don't
I know
remember.
that from very recently.
I mean, it's kind of hard to tell when he's got like the white-haired wig on and the mustache and everything, but yeah.
I rewatched the Dark Knight movies recently while I was editing, man. Those movies are just... We don't get them like that anymore.
It was a weird little anomaly
Dark
in the
Knight Rises?
superhero.
Oh, yeah, I rewatched Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises. Batman Begins is probably my favorite movie of all time, but that's... I know other people will be like, really? But for me, that movie was like a religious experience for me. So when I was a kid watching it, because it was like everything I wanted out of Batman. So, yeah, that's my favorite movie.
I mean, I think the Batman got somewhat close to like the Dark Knight trilogy in terms of like overall tone and look and feel. Yeah, it probably was actually.
I really hope they do Mr. Freeze next, but they probably won't. But I hope so.
I don't know how a character like that can exist in that universe.
I know. Apparently, originally, even Nolan was going to do Mr. Freeze in Dark Knight Rises, but then he changed it. And I was like, I would have loved to see like how he would do it.
Yeah,
you know, he could have just been some psychopath that just puts people in freezers, and that's why it's called Mr. Freeze.
You know, the Riddler was a weird one because it's like he started out as this like really interesting sort of menacing character, and then just like he's a sort of crazy autistic guy screeching away by the end, and it's
he's an incel.
Okay. Yeah, basically. You know, he's even got a YouTube channel where he's like, "Hey guys."
Oh, yeah.
Come on. Bit too on the nose.
I think they said that Clayface is next. That's like one of the big rumors for Batman 2, but I don't know.
I would have thought they'd tackle Clayface because of the power.
There's different versions of him, though.
Okay, but there's like the meme of, you know, if they ever did Mr. Freeze, it wouldn't be the suit, it wouldn't be the powers, the laser weapons, the ice. It would be just a guy in a blue suit who's like organizes a nightclub or something, because of how realistic and grounded the Batman seems to go with. But hey, I'm up for seeing whatever adaptation they come up with. Honestly,
like you look at the Nolan movies, like all the villains are realistic. Like my opinion, that version of Bane, Dark Knight Rises, that's my favorite version of Bane in anything.
How did you feel about his ending?
His ending was dumb as hell. That's I can't defend that at all. When Catwoman shoots him, it was
a terrible ending.
But the way he looks, like the way Bane looked with the mask, and like I loved it. Because he wasn't.
Sorry, on you go.
Yeah, I love the fact that he doesn't have the venom, so he's not this like little skinny guy that takes the venom and then gets big. Mm-hmm. He's just this presence that walks in, like the way his jacket looks, the mask. You're like, yes, I was wondering what would break foot. Like everything he does, I love it so much.
He was a pit bull with a muzzle.
Yeah, but he was great because he's just like, and actually going back and watching Dark Knight Rises, that fight between Bane and Batman when they're in the pit.
Oh, the breaking of the bat.
Oh yeah, I like that. I like all Batman's gadgets. I love how just like, what the fuck are you doing, man?
I love how Bane's got an accent that like no human has ever possessed in all of history. And I did like his final line where it's like he's been in.
It's so good.
I did like as well, like his final line, although he died in the dumbest way. But he's been instructed to keep Batman alive until the bomb goes off, and he's just like, "Well, we both know that I am going to kill you. You'll just have to imagine the explosion."
And then he roundhouse kicks Batman in the side of the head. It's the goofiest kick you
ever
seen.
The whole stadium collapsing part lost me. I went, okay, I'm kind of done.
Dude, sending every cop into the sewer lost me.
No, there's a lot of dumb parts of that movie, but I feel like if I treated Dark Knight Rises like, you know, I would. It's the same way how like you could treat a movie like Us from Jordan Peele. If you really tried to dismantle that movie and what was going on,
you can't. You have to give him credit for trying.
Well, I mean, what's interesting is like, you know, you can really pick apart the Dark Knight as well. Which I beforehand had considered like a decent movie, pretty solid, and then when you see the critiques of it and the breakdown of the plot and stuff, it's like, okay, there's loads of holes in this. But I think with the Dark Knight Rises, they're just way more obvious. Like the holes are so much bigger to the point where it's like, okay,
Heath Ledger is phenomenal in The Dark Knight, and so if you like, wait a minute, how did the Joker know that was just like he's
like, shut up, he's just good, okay?
Like Batman gets
a lot of people
back
feel that
fixed
way.
by getting punched by a dude in the pit. Like that's how he fixes his back, and it's
now in Marvel
whatever.
they have a Mr. Freeze, of course. Now, if you read the She-Hulks after the Universal War, which She-Hulk and the gang won, the Mr. Freeze character who lost out ambushes her in a bar, and she's She-Hulk and she's drinking, she's sad, and because she can't get drunk, right? And he freezes her, and then she just smashes it out, and she looks at him and he goes, "You're going to beat the shit out of me, aren't you?" She said, "I would, but I need a drinking partner." And he goes, "Okay." And I thought,
nice resolution.
And it was just such a great moment where this,
unlike the She-Hulk show,
unlike the She-Hulk show, but I'm just saying that there's a Mr. Freeze there, and I love that moment where having a drinking partner was more important than fighting the bad guy.
I mean, I'd be depressed as well if I couldn't get drunk, so I can empathize with that.
So that was a great moment. You don't really see that often, do you? Where suddenly the good guy and the bad guy have a moment, an All Quiet on the Western Front moment, right? Where they understand each other, they know what each other is. Like, what other movies?
I can't even remember the last time a super movie.
Pacino and De Niro in Heat, obviously, you got the restaurant scene where they sit down. And it's like, they both know what each other's about. And it's just like, we're not in an environment where we're going to fight each other right now, but it's just like, it's a war of words. Just
and why can't you have that in a superhero movie where they kind of grudgingly?
Yeah, why have that when you can have like a sky beam and hordes of generic enemies to fight?
The closest we ever got to it is something people adored, which was Thanos having his small one-to-one with Star-Lord, saying like he was impressed with his decision to execute Gamora. He's like, nice, good job. And with Tony Stark, where he was just like, I hope your people remember you, like you know, you're a good man.
You got
stuff like that people love.
Well, you got stuff like that in Civil War as well, where Tony's trying to convince Cap to sign the Accords, and it's like it's a great little scene, because there's a lot of tension building between them there. But it's like they're trying to rein it in. They're both trying to get their points of view across, and it's just not quite enough for them to meet in the middle.
I think Infinity War is like actually need characters, and one of the biggest problems with most modern superhero films is that it's not coincidental that Thanos is probably the villain with one of the strongest, it's not like the deepest character, but he has a very definite, strong sense of character. He actually does believe things and think off screen, for example. And so many of the villains, whether they're like interstitial villains or they're the main arc villains in Kang, what does anyone really know about Kang? Kang isn't really a character. Kang is just this cosmic plot device. Because he doesn't have a character, there's nothing really for him to say. There's no ideological disagreement. There's no prospect of ideological agreement because none of them have ideology. So there's no point having a conversation because it's just two action figures being smashed together. Well, action figures are not meant to talk.
Use Kang as an example because you have Scott was in prison, so he meets him very personally. They have a long conversation. And then when he does the job for him, when they're setting up, they talk again. And then when he's completed the job, they talk again. And then they talk again in the boss fight room. They have like many opportunities for really interesting conversations, but they never have one.
I think it's once you introduce the multiverse to a story, in my opinion, you remove all stakes, and it's being used far too often in modern media. The whole concept of the multiverse. So whenever
it's burned itself out for sure.
They've just introduced it into Star Wars now. I say introduced; it was in the cartoon shows and stuff, but like it's in the live action now. The world between worlds.
Well,
that'll save it.
It's the production delay problem as well, where it's like you come up with a concept and it's like, well, it's going to be about 3 or 4 years before it actually gets released into the world because it's like takes all that time to develop the scripts and then film it, post-production and everything. So a lot of these things that be coming out now, like the writers or the guys who conceptualized it must be just absolutely kicking themselves like, oh god, multiverses seems like an amazing idea back in the day. I really wish I hadn't done this now.
Yeah, like my girlfriend just reminded me, like, I don't know if you guys play the new Mortal Kombat 1 game, but that game's all about the multiverse too, and it ruins the story because all stakes are gone. Because it's like, who cares if this character dies? There's an infinite amount of them. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
Platoon is right that the villains, you need to be able to imagine that they're doing stuff prior to re-entering our vista. right?
Yeah.
Before they come into the movie to do their thing and leave. Like you want to know that Thanos has actually got a donut chain that he's managing, or something, that he's got stuff to do, people to kill, or other things to do. And it's right. I can't think of another antagonist where you can envision that life outside of the movie.
Here's the thing about Thanos, which is why I think Infinity War is the best MCU movie, is because when you really think about that movie specifically, the reason why it works is because it's not really told from the perspective of the Avengers. The main character of that movie is Thanos.
Yeah, it's true.
You really think about it.
Yeah.
The movie opens up. There he is. This is his journey. And by the end of the movie, he's lost all his friends. He's lost his army. He's kind of lost himself too. And in a way, that's why that movie works so well, is because they almost reversed what could have been a typical, like, we're just going to follow the Avengers and that's it. That whole movie, you're just following Thanos through to the end. And then he wins. And in a way, like, the Avengers were the bad guys in that movie from his perspective. And that's why
that's when you give your villain an arc, you create an interesting dynamic in the story, because it's like the instinct of the audience is to empathize with the character going on a journey. And so when your villain is doing that, it's kind of an interesting thing to work with.
Also, he was super quotable in Infinity War.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like, he's the best villain. That's why Kang comes out. You look at Kang and you're like, who cares?
Look at
fucking MODOK.
Yeah.
Floating potato head.
Look at Batty in Blade Runner. How so unbelievable emotional the antagonist. I mean, his role. I can't even call him an antagonist in that.
Well, he's almost like a frightened animal trying to survive, and like
right.
His motivation is the simplest of all. It's like, I want to stay alive, and I need Tyrell to find a way to cure me of this thing,
and
killing
my
me.
Clan.
Yeah, and that's the
he
whole
had
thing
a family.
About yeah, and that's the whole thing about the replicants. Like, they're all essentially children because they've only had a few years of actual life experience, of lifespan. So their emotional development is so simple compared to like the actual humans around them who are like 40, 50 years old.
And what a horrible thing we did to them.
Well, yeah.
Which I don't know if you probably know the lore, which is why they added the voiceover. Because in test screenings, the audience sided with Batty, and it freaked the Fox out.
Yeah, and Ford hated the idea of the voiceovers, and he did like his worst possible performance.
So yeah, I've got
the director's,
the director's cut without the voiceover works better. Like it's undeniably a better version of the movie. But it's interesting what a studio executive picks up during testing and what scares them. So
yeah, well, a movie like Blade Runner, it 100% is about asking, like, well, who is the real villain of this? What does it mean to be, one, human, and two, to be humane? And yeah, Batty kind of gets to that point way ahead of Deckard.
Yep,
he's willing to save his life at the end rather than just let him die, and it's his final act as a living being. So,
isn't it great when movies have like complex characters?
Well, yeah, and like Marvel doesn't really get to that stage, but it has at least it has something going on with Thanos. Like Platoon mentioned, his motivations aren't particularly complicated, but there's something at least to grapple with.
I would love to see a Thanos prequel movie. I'm more interested in that than anything that they do in the future. Personally, I would love to see a young Thanos with his family. And when you remember, he has that line in the movie where, like, I ignored my destiny once.
You mean like young Sheldon? That's a sitcom?
Not like that. No. I mean more like, in like his 20s, early 30s. However old Thanos is, like hundreds of years old. But
I want to see more Kang. He's super cool and interesting.
If the Majors even stays, right? Yeah. We don't know.
Depending on how that court case goes, you might never see him.
Hey, we got Loki season 2 is coming. Okay, that's a guarantee. Of more Kang.
When does that come out? Soon, right? Like next.
Yeah, like
week
next week.
The trailer
just after Ahsoka finishes.
The trailer looks okay. I mean, I don't want to pillory.
Sylvie doesn't seem to be in it, which is interesting. It seems to be almost like a buddy movie between him and what's his name?
Owen Wilson.
Owen Wilson. Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe that will do something. I don't know.
Maybe
just before we go on, I just want to read out a super chat from John McKinley, who some of you guys might remember from a few weeks ago. He was going through a bit of a tough time when we were doing this open bar. But he says, "Hail Drinker, MauLer, and panel. Just wanted to say thank you for getting me through my dark time. It means the world to me. Also very glad to see Endymion on the panel. I subbed to him a few weeks ago, and he's awesome. Cheers."
Love you too, buddy. Thank you.
Thanks, John McKinley, and it's good to see that you're doing better, man. Yeah, keep it up.
It's always good to hear. We have our low points and our high points.
Yeah.
This is my low point here.
Yeah. Well,
really, this is my high point of the month. This is great.
I get paid to drink for once, so like open bar is the best time of my week.
I used to be a star, for fuck's sake.
When Drinker messaged me,
you're here with us plebs. But hey, what you thought it was the low point of your life, but now you're about to get even lower because we're going to talk about Ahsoka.
Right. By the way, I worked with Paul Jackson, you bastard. So,
well, Ahsoka episode 7
Ahsoka
came out, and well, it's more of the same. How did you guys feel about it? Because I was bored out of my mind.
I have a theory. I have a feeling it was probably going to happen. Shin's probably going to join Ahsoka, right? That's going to happen. She's not going to die.
No one's going to die, I don't think, because they need to set up season 2.
Now I'm not even sure Balin's going to die.
No,
they might recast him at this point.
Shin kills Balin.
That was my assumption, but now I'm not sure after the new episode.
I think what's going to happen is... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Maybe Thrawn kills Balin?
Balin's got a quest line he's got to solve. He's got his whole, I sense a power in this planet and I got to find it. And he doesn't want to... I think the last shot of Balin in the story of that episode was him deciding, you know what, fuck this. I don't want anything to do with Thrawn, this mission, Ahsoka. I just want to go do my thing. And I think that's what's going to happen in the next episode. He's going to be doing his weird Witches of the Dathomir thing. And then they might have to recast him. Yeah, I'm not sure he's going to die anymore.
It's too bad. He's the best character.
Thrawn did threaten to kill him and the Poodle Girl.
Yeah,
Poodle Girl's not dying though.
She's a strong female character, but he was just going to leave them behind, wasn't he?
Yep,
he was happy to just abandon them there,
and he was partially hoping they'd die to the fight in general, right? Yeah, he said it wouldn't matter if they just perish anyway.
My favorite part of the episode is when Ezra said, "I don't need weapons. I only need the Force to protect me." And then he picks up a laser gun and starts killing dudes in cold blood.
Yeah.
My favorite part was when his witch, who's no longer a witch, what's her name, Heather or whatever, says, "Yes, but you're wiping out your men and everything else." "It was my plan. It doesn't matter. We're just wasting. She's just wasting time. We just needed more time to put my furniture from my living room into the Death Star, into the Star Destroyer."
I think we pointed this out on Brown Show the last night when we were talking about Thrawn. Like, Thrawn in the books is popular because he's genuinely quite clever. And the writer was able to convey his intelligence and make him seem like an imposing villain. He's not magical. He doesn't have these super weapons. He's not a Sith master. He is just a very clever guy. And he became popular because that was depicted quite well. But since Filoni took him over, he is now the stupid person's idea of what a smart person is. So all his lines are written by a stupid person because they met a smart guy once and he always sounded like he knew what he was doing. So that's what Thrawn's going to be like.
I said this to MauLer earlier, right? There was someone in chat last night who just summed Thrawn up perfectly in this. It's like he would go to tie his shoelaces and fall over and faceplant and shit himself simultaneously, and then stand up and go, "Ha! This is exactly what I'd intended. It's the last thing they expected from me." It's just failing constantly, but pretending like he's doing the right thing.
Just like I planned. It's like Maxwell's.
It's pretty embarrassing.
Right?
That's all he is.
You can't get out of it too. You can't just tell me as the right. This is like one of the classic cases of you have someone in the world state what's the truth, and we're all looking at it like, no, I know that's not true. You can tell me all day long that that's true, but it's not. He's not smart. He didn't plan all of this. If you watch the beginning of the episode, he's like, okay, we know Ahsoka will be arriving at these coordinates outside the planet. Set up a kill box, destroy her. They fail. That plan fails. It's like, okay, chase her into a little bone field. We'll try and kill her in there. That fails. All of the people can't chase her because they're all shittier pilots and they'll die. He's like, okay, pull back. We'll wait and then we'll scan and then we'll shoot her and kill her. They do that. It fails. And they're like, fuck. And then they're like, okay, let her leave and we'll follow her to the big fight that's happening on the ground anyway, and we'll kill them all. We'll send in our troops. It's going to be great. They fail. And then he's like, actually, this was all my plan. It's so embarrassing.
It's like we've lost hundreds of men and we've done absolutely no damage to them, but we delayed them by a bit.
Can someone tell me how space whales rot in space?
No idea.
Good question.
Living bones? Can someone please tell me what's the physics behind that?
I love the idea that they go to this planet to die, apparently, according to Balin, right? And so they get there and then they start getting attacked by by mines, which do absolutely nothing to them, like space mines, which blow up.
Dude, there's like a whale. Do you think the whales were 15 of them, and it doesn't do shit? They don't even bleed. Like there's no wounds. There's nothing. They just go.
Do you think the whales were like, I just wanted to die in peace?
I really hope they can pay that off. Whatever Balin's looking for.
Oh
I'm blown away that they maintained throughout that episode that the whales were no guarantee of anything. The Ahsoka was making all this up as she went along. Like Hu Yang actually confirms that with her, and she's like, "Yeah, well, this worked out, didn't it?"
Is that what? Yep. Do they call that like lamp shading or something, where you just shine a light on something that's ridiculous in the plot, but then just go with it? Where
yeah,
he's
pretty
like
much.
literally, we don't even know if these fucking things are going to take us to the right galaxy. Never mind the right solar system. Never mind the right planet in that system. And she's like, "Yeah, you're right."
Well, she even said something like, "That's the fun of it," or something. That's like the adventure.
No, she says, "I think the odds are good," and he's like, "No, they're astronomically terrible, you absolute tool." And she's like, "Well, you should have said something." And then he's like, "Yeah, I did." And that's when she just kind of smiles, and it's like, "Haha, I played a joke on you." But it's like, yes, but you're missing the point he made, which is that you could end up anywhere. You're trusting your entire life to a fucking space whale.
That's genuinely like the cartooniness seeping in of like, if you look throughout the whole season, he gives her advice that she ignores. He tells her all these protocols and she ignores them. He's like, "Oh, you should have stuck together with Sabine." Then they don't. And then he's like, "Oh, you should do this." And she doesn't. How fun is that?
Oh my god, I hate Sabine. I hate Sabine.
Should. Everyone should. Sabine's a horrible person. She may have destroyed the whole galaxy. She doesn't even care.
And it's so dumb when she's fighting the aliens. It's like these like aliens from another galaxy. This is like a 95-pound girl, and she's knocking them out. I'm like, these aliens are useless.
Of course she is. This is fucking Disney. Like, girls can beat up guys 3 times their size. It's easy. Like that's how life works.
I don't even mind that so much though. It's like it's the decisions she makes, the lack of characterization, the inability to convey any facial expression that isn't just smug, and then the fact that everyone around her just accepts every single thing that she does. In Ezra's case, with no curiosity at all. She turns up after however many years it's been. It's like, "Oh, good to see you again." Yeah, great. I thought that was supposed to be an important plot point, but apparently we've moved on. He says, "How did you get here?" She says, "A good question for another time."
Yep.
He
says,
Ezra is a perfect male hero in a Disney show where he's utterly subservient. He just accepts whatever he's told. He doesn't ask any inconvenient questions. He doesn't have any real motivation of his own. He doesn't have any agency, and he doesn't really do anything unless it's like with her direct influence.
Sounds like the Mandalorian in season 3.
Because I said this on Mr. Brown's stream last night. Like, if I was him and Sabine just showed up in a different galaxy and found me, and I had questions for her, like, how did you get here? How did all of this come about? And her only response was, "Oh, it's complicated."
Yeah.
My answer would be, well, I don't care. Fucking explain it, because clearly you're hiding something really important from me, and I want to know what it is now, or we're not going any further here.
It's also a massive with him as well. Like, he has no characterization. So for the majority of the audience, they don't know who he is. They've never seen him before. Most people did not watch Rebels even. Most people haven't seen it. So this is our first introduction to this ostensibly pivotal character. We've now seen him in 2 episodes. I don't think you can actually deduce anything about his character at all from his 2 appearances beyond that he's vaguely happy and a bit hippie-ish, and that's kind of it. But that's partly a function of him having no character, is the fact that he's not interrogating Sabine. You can show his characterization, which you need to do, given it's his introduction in the penultimate episode of the whole season. You need to show he has some sort of personality, intelligence, wit, curiosity. If he's pressing her for answers, we learn something about him, which we need to do, but he doesn't. So we just think, I don't care about you. The show doesn't seem to care about you either, so I don't know why I should.
I don't think Filoni does. I think he's just like he's more of a MacGuffin. He's just an object to be fought over.
Dude, I've seen
he doesn't have any real personality.
That he'll be killed in episode 8 because of the fact that he's been given so little weight and interest. Like, he'll be it'll be to teach Sabine something or to have her have loss or something. And I was like,
you're talking about Balon?
No. Ezra. Like, I've seen people theorize that it might be that Sabine fucks up and that he dies, and that's going to be her thing to deal with. But the thing is, I don't know that we're going to deliver any consequences to her. I just don't buy it. Like, she should have major ones. But what we just saw, and it's a formula that they've kept doing, which drives me nuts. When Hera ignored the demands of the council that sits above her in rank, and she took a whole bunch of people into a dangerous mission that had no sanctions and no support and no records,
including her son, by the way.
And they were out of communication because they went into a place that blocked it or whatever. And then she got 2 people killed. And yes, you're right, she brought a child into it. She goes to the court-martial, which I was actually happy to see, by the way. I legit was like, thank fuck, finally, fire that bitch. And then they were like, no, Leia said it's fine. And you notice how it's like, it wasn't just how convenient that is and how it's impossible in terms of the logistics that would even happen. Even Mon Mothma points out that that's illegal and impossible, but who cares, right? Lampshade. But Leia wouldn't have done that. Leia would have been like, what are you guys doing? You're going off mission to just do whatever the hell you want. You got people killed and you have no idea what's happening. Why would I support that?
Didn't she slap Poe in the face and demote him for doing literally that exact same thing?
Correct.
But it's okay when Hera does it. I think we know why it's okay when Hera does it, but it's not okay when he does it.
When 3PO was like, Leia Organa, and I was like, get her fucking name out of this show. You don't deserve it. You can't just use that to get away with everything.
That was a very impressive moment when the guard at the front of the courthouse was preventing 3PO from getting in. It was filled with so much drama. And I went, oh, what's going to happen? Oh, no. Holy smokes. Is 3PO going to like knock him on his ass and kung fu him? No.
I liked as well. I liked Hera's response when, Asian senator guy quite rightly points out, like, you disobeyed direct orders when we told you not to go there and you did it anyway. And her response is, no, I just ignored your orders.
Like,
no, and it's like, no, you're missing the point. That order didn't come from him. It came from the entire council. Like, that was what you were told to do, and you did the opposite of that. It doesn't matter if you don't like him personally. Like, it's more than just him. But she gets even a little smile from Mon Mothma, and it's like, I don't know, man. It's just like sisters doing it for themselves or something.
No, it seems like a joke. And I can't believe that's Hera's story for the season. She waddles about, showing off how awesome she is, taking control of every situation, using her authority rather than her creativity or her interests or her intelligence. She just goes, I'm a general, I'm a general, I'm a general. She gets in serious trouble and kills people, and then she gets bailed out. That's her story for the season. What a worthless character.
Yeah.
She's practically a bad guy.
There's this huge world building gap in place as well. So, and it does pay forward to the sequels, because the sequels, Leia is supposedly, I think this is in the deleted scenes, wasn't it, or some scene that didn't make it into the film, is when she's been trying to warn them about this coming threat and no one's paying her any attention, so she has no real power, and that's one of the reasons the First Order is able to be so successful. We didn't listen. And yet, apparently in this part of the timeline, Leia is complete authority to override the Senate Oversight Committee as chairman of the Defense Committee, which I think is what Leia's position currently is. I don't know what the Oversight Committee is supposed to be overseeing, if it could be overruled by the thing it's supposed to be overseeing, but that's, politics. We don't want to do that. That's the prequels. But if she has that amount of power and she can send people on personal little vendetta missions and she has immense creative control over the direction of the New Republic, then what business does the New Republic have being as incompetent as it is? I think it would have been better if you'd portrayed someone in Leia's position as being, absolutely hamstrung by bureaucracy, which I think is what the sequels hinted that she was. But this one does sort of, if it pays any attention to the sequels at all, it still manages to contradict them. It's not a good show.
No, it was convenient at the time. All this thing is. There's
just so much Deus Ex Machina in this over and over again. It's the writing of convenience, and in a lot of ways, because I'm a sketch guy, it feels like a sketch show. Each section is disconnected from the one before. It's like, okay, I'm going to have a sketch about a kitchen sink being repaired. Oh, this one here is going to be a bunch of guys fighting with each other. And why Balin, for no reason, just goes, no, Shin, you go on your own. I'm going to stay here and wait for Ahsoka.
And then Ahsoka pushes out of the fight, by the way.
And why isn't why isn't Ahsoka going right into the main fight? Why is she suddenly jumping out of a vehicle, an airplane that's traveling at 1,000 kilometers an hour?
I liked as well the fact that like they're facing off against each other like for the second time, right? And he's like, I'm gonna kill you or whatever because I'm dangerous. And she just ignites her lightsaber and goes, I don't have time to waste on you. Now, this is the guy who kicked her ass the last time, right? And she's got a vested interest in taking him on again. Like, she should be either scared of him or like really fired up and ready to fight him again.
And I kept yelling, take off that cape. Take the cape off. Like, you're completely...
No cape.
Yeah, I mean, in this, it's just...
Take the poncho off.
For her, it's like, I'm just taking on a droid or something. Like, it's just a low-level enemy that I don't have to care about because I'm so goddamn good. And it's like, no, you're missing the point of where her character is supposed to be with him at this point.
For anyone who haven't seen it in the audience, when they're dueling, they like lock for a moment, and he says, like, you can't beat me. And then she says, perhaps. And then, like, we look in the distance, and Hu Yang is on the way. And he fires what look like a bunch of flares or something into the ground, which creates loads of smoke. And then Ahsoka just fucks off. She just runs.
Right.
I was so fucking confused. I had the same feelings as Balin in that scene. I was just like,
what just happened? Why did that fight happen? That's a completely redundant little episode.
Hu Yang? Like, Hu Yang, I want you to drop me down, and then I'm going to fight him for a bit. And if I get stuck, can you fire some flares at me? Because she never speaks to Hu Yang between the time that she's left the ship and fights Balin. So what the fuck was that? It was so weird. And you're right. Why didn't she just drop into the main fight? Why did she drop onto Balin?
Why?
And did you guys catch the awful CG of her dropping down, by the way?
Yeah.
That shit was shocking.
It's like Play-Doh.
Why did they show it? Why wouldn't you just cut it out? I don't understand why you make these choices.
The very opening scene where she was doing that practice with the holographic version of Anakin was so painful to watch. And I feel badly for Rosario because she's either too old. Yeah, she's too old. She can't do it. My daughter is a kickboxer. Okay. When she's in the ring, practicing, she's never done it professionally, but when I see her do it, it's fast. It's furious. You hear smacks. It's very exciting. And she wrestles with guys. I mean, and the ferocity and the action is just so much better, so more realistic than that practicing. Like, I've seen my daughter just practicing, and her sinews tense, and her movements are just so precise. And Rosario was, I don't know. It was such a horrible opening sequence. It's unbelievable. I could not believe that training sequence.
I think it's probably not an age thing because she's only like mid-40s, so it's not like decrepit or anything. I think it's more just either she hasn't spent enough time training for this stuff, or maybe she just doesn't have that.
I don't think so.
Skill. Maybe she just doesn't have that skill for fight choreography. I think some people perhaps either have it or they don't. It's like being able to dance or being able to juggle or whatever. Like, some people can do it, some people can't, and maybe she just can't.
Not everybody's Henry Cavill.
Yeah, I mean, so like when she's doing it, it's just very slow and very deliberate because that's all she can manage. And it's particularly bad when she doesn't have someone to play off, because at least when she was fighting Hayden Christensen, he's good and he can move well. And when there's two lightsabers clashing,
I thought you made
with
it
each other,
weird, though.
One shit person, like one good person, can make up for a slightly shitter fighter and make them look better. But like in this, she's just working by herself, so there's nothing.
I really think that that was the main time I noticed how bad she was seeing Anakin next to her being so smooth and fast.
I mean, I was kind of looking for it because I kind of knew he was good, and I kind of sensed that she wasn't. But like, my point is, like, at least when there's two people doing stuff like that, when there's lightsabers clashing against each other and stuff, it creates enough just general action that you can sort of overlook one person being a bit weaker choreography wise, because like, you know, there's just a general visual excitement on screen.
I wish
when
she was
just
better.
her, it's shit.
I wish she was better trained. I've seen 80-year-old Chinese women in the park do Tai Chi better than her.
But I mean, a time consideration though there. I mean, if you look at the amount of time it took for them to train up Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor for the Star Wars prequels. You don't have that affordance when you're doing a TV show like Ahsoka.
And get
I
a
think
double.
That really does
Get a
show.
double,
Well,
yeah.
a double would,
Yeah.
that's the obvious and clear answer. Get a double, especially given that she's wearing so much makeup and the headpiece.
Yeah.
It would be the easiest thing in the world to hide. They didn't do that. I don't really know why they didn't do that. There were a couple of shots where you think that probably is a double, because suddenly, like, for about 2 seconds, they look competent, and then they go back to being shit again, and you think, well, maybe that wasn't you.
I think the thing I mentioned last night on Mr. Brown's stream as well was that this is the point in the story as well where you could inject a little bit of emotion into her, because she took a beating at the hands of Balin. She's been through like this like emotional kind of roller coaster with Anakin's ghost or memory or whatever the fuck he was in the world between worlds. Still don't understand what that was meant to be, but one way or the other, like, she's got a score to settle, and so this could be an opportunity for her to be pushing herself to her limits, like, you know, letting the desire for revenge or the emotion of seeing Anakin again just kind of get to her a little bit, and she's like pushing herself a little bit too hard. That could show you something about what her emotional state is right now. Instead, it's just bland. There's no emotion from her whatsoever. It's just, I'm going through the motions and I'm watching this thing. It might as well just be a person listening to workout music in the gym. And then I switch the hologram recording off and I have a conversation with Huyang, whatever the fuck he's called. And then just move on to the next scene. That's it. It tells me nothing about what she's thinking at this point.
They decided to bring her back Zen as opposed to anything. And the thing with Zen is it's actually not very interesting at all, unless you've got a really, really stark contrast with a chaotic character who then gains a bigger and broader perspective. Then you can play off of that contrast. But in Ahsoka's case, there was never that to begin with. She was always pretty dour and boring and flat, and now she's just come back as a slightly happier version of that because she makes one or two facial expressions.
Remember in The Matrix, right at the end, where Neo becomes the one and he realizes his true power and he's able to like just deflect bullets and just block Agent Smith with one hand. He's not even trying anymore. It would be like if he reached that stage like 2/3 of the way through the movie. And there was like the final confrontation was just him like that.
It does.
It wouldn't mean anything then.
Like, she only really performed well up until falling off the cliff. And then a bunch of confusing things happened mechanically, and now she's back to being like hyper full power and super. I'm not sure if the word I'm gonna go for is smug, but in every single perilous battle, she seems to be chill. She's just like, I got this. And you're like, you do? You ran away. Like, I don't know if you do have this, but she's like, nah, I'm fine. Remember where all the stormtroopers have their guns trained on the heroes? Then she just lands like in front of him after blowing a few with the force away. When we watched it on EFAB, we were just like, okay, shoot.
Yeah, there's a whole army of them behind them. Just shoot them in the back.
She
They're dead.
turns up and she's got this smile on her face, like, haha, we win now. And it's like, no.
Like, or just fly overhead with your big Star Destroyer and just flatten the entire area. Glass that entire place within 10 square miles.
What a bad decision. Thrawn is smarter than you, Drinker. He'd rather just sacrifice a whole portion of his army for no reason at all.
Even though he told us in the earlier episode that they're really resource strapped and they can't afford to do that sort of thing anymore. But no, it's all part of the plan. One TIE bomber would have solved the problem, but no.
It's as Paul was coming up with, like it's almost a skit comedy sometimes. It feels like Morgan Elsbeth is the number 2 to Thrawn's Dr. Evil.
Yes.
Where a really dumb decision happens and it's like, Dr. Evil, are you sure we should waste 2 squads of our troopers? And it's like, actually, it's a very good decision because I actually distracted them from my giant laser. So
there's that bit when she says, well, all I see is our enemies reunited. That seems pretty bad. And Thrawn's like, well, yeah, but it's fine. We have more time to finish loading whatever the hell we're loading onto the Star Destroyer that we didn't inexplicably load beforehand.
That was exactly what I was planning.
Yeah, doesn't he also say, like, we've learned important information about our adversary?
Yes, about
like at one point, and it's like you were given a file on her. Like, you could just read with your eyes. That would tell you everything you needed to know about her. Why did you need to do all this? It's just it's covering stupidity with the veneer of intelligence.
I think my theory is that we are still suffering under Disney rules. That if you take a look at Iron Man 1 and the kind of violence that was in that, as soon as Disney got a hold of Marvel, Star Wars, and there was some nasty stuff happening in Star Wars. I mean, hands were being cut off all over the place. Suddenly, that kind of violence, it seems like there was a edict from above. No more hand cutting off. We'll kill off people that look more like NPCs. We'll kill thousands of NPCs off, but we're not really going to kill off human beings. They do the odd one in their fighters, but it's you never see.
But Paul,
the shot.
Someone will die in episode 8, right? It's the season finale. Someone's got to fucking die.
No.
Right?
I've got a feeling that we're going to suffer under the. But it'll be maybe self-inflicted, or they'll fall off a cliff, or they'll or they'll get like a bleedy nose and die. I mean,
I do miss like people getting hands taken off, because
imagine
if that had happened to Sabine. Like, that would have been a great piece of character development. You could have done something with that.
Chop
but it's like,
fucking legs off, take them.
It's always with the legs with you, MauLer.
You just
want to have her be like the Black Knight from fucking Monty Python.
I wanted to be crawling, crying, and screaming as Shin is walking toward her after she's chopped her legs off. Give me something fucking dark.
So I think
Monty Python is darker than
we are suffering under the Disney edict, where nothing bad is ever going to really happen. So we're never really going to be concerned.
It can happen, but it's not going to happen to Ahsoka, Sabine, or
wait, I think it goes a little bit further on Paul's point, because when you have this huge selection of fucking hermit crabs throwing rocks, right? And they're about to be attacked by 2 lightsaber wielding fucking mercenaries, a whole bunch of bandits, and then a series of stormtroopers. I said when we were watching, it's like, not a single fucking hermit crab will die. No. But they should get annihilated, and Sabine should feel fucking guilty because she got all of them killed for no reason at all. But not a single one. They couldn't kill one of them.
I did like this comment as well. When we were talking about the veneer of intelligence. What veneer? This is a shit sandwich covered in shit gravy.
Oh no, not shit gravy.
They
not that again.
They have a lot of time they can still play with. They don't need to kill anybody off. So unbelievably, it's taken until the penultimate episode of the show for us to actually understand where in time this show is set. Because up until this point, the closest we've got is a guy saying it has been several years since the end of the Empire. And I'm thinking, okay, but this is supposed to be, part of the same universe as Mando. How does it fit together? Where are we set? Now we finally learn in this episode that this is set after Mando season 3, but that's still, I think, is it 12 APY? And the sequels aren't until 30-something APY. So there's a good 15, almost 20 years of timeline they can still use these characters in if they want to. They don't need to kill anyone off in this show. They can bring them back. Filoni undoubtedly wants to for his film that almost certainly won't happen. Yeah. So, And it's going to be really annoying with Balin in particular, because he's the only one who's almost interesting. And I have a really terrible feeling that he's going to do absolutely nothing. And he really needs to, because his entire characterization is essentially just nebulous comments and mysterious stares. And he's quite beguiling. He performs it really well, but you need to deliver some kind of substance on that eventually. And he almost has substance in this one. There's one almost kind of clever little dynamic, because in the previous episode, he's talking to Billie Eilish, Chaos Goblin woman, and he's talking about, the Empire power being fleeting, and he's after a different kind of power. And in this one, when he sends her off to fight Ahsoka, to fight Sabine on her own, he says, "You go and join the Empire." So that's a clear ideological break between these two characters. He is consciously casting her off because she doesn't fit into his grander plan and design. That's not bad work, but I don't know what it is exactly.
Yeah, dude, I feel like
it won't be found out this season. It'll be a setup for season 2. And I bet you if you ask Dave Filoni right now, what is Balin actually looking for? He'd be like, I don't know.
I'll figure it out.
Work that way later.
You really think it's going to get a season 2? The views are pretty
probably,
bad for it.
Unfortunately.
It probably will, yeah.
It's written.
Ray Stevenson in it, though.
It's written as a giant cliffhanger.
Yeah, it's barely an intro to an actual show this season. You could have done all this in like 2 episodes. It's insane.
But yeah, like Dave Filoni's movie, if it ever happens, which it probably won't, is intended to be heir to the Empire. So it's setting up that. So Thrawn isn't going to die. Ahsoka's not going to die. No, probably no one is. This is just setting up the next season.
I think Balin's going to die. At least I think
one of the most offensive things
I don't anymore
in this show is that Sabine did not reveal to Ezra that she literally gave up the rebels just to see him. Like,
yep.
That is utterly offensive.
But then Ahsoka doesn't even call her out on it when she gets reunited with her.
True.
She should 100% have slapped the shit out of her and been like, yep, you fucking you risked the entire galaxy. You've allowed Thrawn to get back just so you could be reunited with Ezra, you selfish arsehole.
For those who don't know, Ezra's whole decision in Rebels was like, I get rid of myself to get rid of Thrawn. Good luck, everyone. Bye, sort of thing. And now it's like, you've just undone all of that. And so now the last 10 years that I've spent in exile are pointless. Thanks.
Yep.
Wow.
And that's the other thing. And he doesn't have any agency now either. He doesn't get to make any decision about whether or not this is a good thing. Like, he doesn't even show concern of like, okay, if you came back here, then other people might, and they could bring Thrawn back, and that's really dangerous, and that undoes everything that I sacrificed essentially my life for, my future for. Why have you done this?
I also think that they missed an opportunity by portraying him as super warm, cozy, happy, and just having fun with the crab people instead of like he's had to live a really difficult life under a lot of stress, attacked
like
by
a hippie.
Thrawn, hiding. Well, imagine like his clothes are all torn. He's not exactly looking super hygienic, and he's always on the edge of not having any food. He's like kind of gaunt a little bit. And then the second he sees her, he's like horrified, and we don't understand why. It's like, that's your friend, isn't it? And he's like, no, because you being here means that everything I've just done was worth nothing. If you're
but
here,
that's good writing. You can't have that. So no.
Yeah.
Such a fucking when he's like, oh hey, how you doing? Oh, how did you get here? I'll tell you tomorrow.
Star Wars has turned into this, just like a it turned into Disney. It's just family. Everything's like clean, and that's why it's boring.
Well, yeah, I think MauLer, you and I talked about this. It's like the point where Sabine gets attacked by the really shitty like bandits that like shoot everything apart from her face, which is like the vulnerable part of her. And like that's when we all thought like, oh, this is when Ezra's going to show up. He's going to like save her and drive them off, and then they're going to have a big emotional reunion scene. And it's like, no, of course you can't, because that violates the rule that she's going to get saved by a guy, so that can't happen.
Yeah, that would have been
instead,
good.
she just fights them all off and then goes to his village, and he's just like in a hut, and just comes out and he's like, "Hey, Sabine, how you doing?" And then it's just they have this really awkward, stilted reunion scene where she again refuses to show like any real emotion, and it's just like this is what happens. This is what happens when the rules of fucking Disney storytelling kill your story. Like,
it's true. Look at Star Wars when George Lucas did it, right? Like, you got Dooku getting his head cut off and stuff, hands getting cut off, and now they don't do anything. Just robots getting cut up, and that's it. That's the only like
it's
they're
just
allowed
so
to do.
unsatisfying. Like, just purely from a dramatic storytelling point of view, it's so shit. It's like the most bland, boring way of getting all this stuff to happen.
And this is why it was surprising when you watch Guardians 3 and you remember the main villain at the end when his face gets like ripped off. I couldn't believe they showed that because it's Disney. That's why as violent as they've gone forever.
Yeah, but that's James Gunn. Like, I think it's just purely because he was able to make that happen. They would never have like.
Peacemaker's dad got killed in that short series. That was. I mean, he turned into a bad guy, and the son had to kill his dad. That was fantastic. Sorry, I gave away a part there.
It's old now, so you've yeah.
If you want an extra depressing little bit there, I think of all the Disney Star Wars shows, you've got The Mandalorian all 3 seasons, you've got Boba Fett, you've got Obi-Wan. I'm not counting Andor for some reason. Okay, I'm going to include Andor because it's technically Disney Star Wars. Andor and am I missing one, or is that all of them? And then you've got Ahsoka.
I think that's everything.
Of all of those, I mean, Andor is the only one that's a show that's made for people with half a brain. But of the rest, I'm not sure I wouldn't put Ahsoka on top. I think Ahsoka's probably better than Boba Fett and Obi-Wan and Mando, and it's still this bad.
You're not going to get people to agree with you about Mando season 1. People would put that above.
I did bunch all 3 seasons together. Mando season 1 is probably better. Than
Mando season 2 was better than kind of bad. Yeah,
it's better than Boba Fett, and it's better than Obi-Wan. Partly because it's not destroying so many legacy characters as those shows did. No, and partly because there's this tiny, I don't even know what you would call it. It's like, it seems like it's just it's better made shit than those shows. It kind of looks like there's a bit more variety to it. You know, maybe they spent a bit more money on it or whatever. That could be something, but yeah, there's not much in it.
Personally, I think Mando's the best out of all of them. But like you said, Andor's for people with brains. That's probably why I didn't like Andor, because I have like ADHD when I watch stuff, and so that's probably why. But I thought Mando season 1 and 2 were pretty good. Like, they weren't terrible; they're pretty good, especially the ending of Mando season 2. I like that part.
What can I even describe? Yeah, what can I even describe Mando as? It's like, okay, if you've got really limited goals, it's pretty easy to hit them. And that kind of feels like what Mando season 1 was. It's like, we're just going to tell a really simple, stripped back story with a cool looking main character. You can't fuck that up too many ways. And so they did okay with it. When you get to season 3, it's like, well, with each season, they tried to add more storytelling into it. And the more story they tried to work in, the more they fucked up because they can't do it. They don't have the writing skill. And so that's where season 3 just completely fell apart.
Season 3 was miserable. I hated it. It was awful. And it's typical Disney stuff where the strong male lead gets sidelined for the female characters. And I'm noticing that in Ahsoka too, even though she's a strong female lead, she's kind of being sidelined too for other characters as well. I think Sabine, they do all the time.
Yeah, it's really between her and Sabine as in terms of like where the bulk of the narrative goes. Like, absolutely 0 goes to Ezra, 0 goes to Thrawn. There's whatever you get with Balin, it's 95% of that is just down to Ray Stevenson just giving a really good performance. It's not the writing of the character that makes him work. So it's that kind of show, I guess. But well, we got one more episode to go. I feel like I'll be relieved when it's done and we just like move past it, because the past couple episodes, it's just really starting to get like a slog. It's becoming difficult to get through.
So I think they're funny compared to Andor, which was really, really slow. This to me, I think is, like I said, it's kind of a weird carnival ride. I'm enjoying it because it's so bad.
Do you think anything Disney's made with Star Wars is good at all? Like movies, games, anything?
Andor was good.
Maybe I have to go back and watch Andor. Yeah,
Andor was good. Jedi Fallen Order wasn't too bad as a game. I mean, it's a bit.
What'd you think of Survivor?
Mechanics-wise, Survivor again, I thought was just okay. Nothing massively special, but it did. It tried a few new things. It at least seemed to have some respect for its own story, as opposed to most of the TV shows, which don't. So the games have been kind of just, you could compare them to any of the old like Jedi Outcast games, and they're pretty poor by comparison. But in terms of Star Wars media overall, they're still okay. Andor is very good. Mando season 1 was
all right, fine. I'll watch Andor. I'll try getting through it.
I can live with Rogue One as well. Like,
Rogue One's
definitely got issues, but like overall, I think it's okay. I guess.
I think it's downright strange to watch Rogue One, probably at this point, knowing everything that. Like, I mean, there's stuff that matches the current way they do everything and everything, but the fact that so many people get killed is still kind of like look at that.
Yeah, I love that.
Wild consequences in a Star Wars movie.
Like I said, that last 30 minutes of last 30 minutes of Rogue One, that's the best thing Disney has done with Star Wars, hands down. Because it felt like a real war. Like when that grenade gets thrown into the ship, and you see the pilot just kind of look up, and then it just cuts to the whole ship exploding, and that's it for him. He's dead.
Some of the most I've ever felt. I'm gonna exclude Andor because I want to ignore that for a second. The most I've felt from Disney Star Wars was when the robot died. It's like when the robot's powers stopped working. I was like, oh, look what he sacrificed to get them through there.
Yeah, that was a genuinely good movie. Everything else though has been kind of whatever. Not good at all.
It's been bad from Force Awakens. I walked out of that movie really angry.
Force Awakens to me is just typical studio BS, right? They just take something that everyone loves, they soft reboot it, because Force Awakens is basically a New Hope but worse.
Yeah.
It's the same thing they did with Jurassic Park and Jurassic World. It's the same movie again, but worse.
Yeah, Force Awakens is just J.J. Abrams in his final form, where it's like pretty, there's no, how can I put it? Like, there's no artistic intent behind it. It's just, it's like we fed every piece of Star Wars knowledge we have into an AI and just asked it to spit out generic Star Wars movie number 7. And this is what we got. it's designed to appeal to as many people as possible. It's designed to just get the basic plot elements in place to give you something like building blocks for a trilogy that someone else with more skill can pick up later.
And it succeeded in that regard.
I mean, it got things started. It was still a shit movie when you look back at it in retrospect. Like maybe if episode,
it's the wrong story.
Yeah, if episode 8 had been some fantastic movie that really like made the most of all those mystery boxes and stuff, maybe we might have had a slightly more favorable view of Force Awakens. But as it stands now, we can just see how hollow it was.
I just can't believe that they got Star Wars, paid like $4 billion for it, and then they didn't have like a real outline for it, and they kind of just made the first movie, had all these things, gave it to Rian Johnson, and he went, I'm going to do what I want to do with it, and he kind of just destroyed everything and then gave it back to them, and then I just don't understand how you couldn't have a plan for an episode like episode 7 to 9.
Apparently JJ did, and Ryan ignored it.
How do you let that happen?
A lot of conflicting accounts on that. Daisy Ridley has talked about how her parentage changed from like 4 different people throughout all the production, which is hilarious to think about.
I just can't believe that happened. It's bizarre to me.
I don't blame Daisy. Poor Daisy.
No, I don't blame her either. The attitude from the moment they bought Star Wars was create a character and make their lineage something that we're going to figure out by the time we hit the 3rd movie in our trilogy. And that's like the biggest scope they had, was like, we're going to bring in a new character and she'll be either related to Vader, related to Kenobi, related to Mace Windu. Who knows? This is going to be great. That's going to be the main thing everyone can concern themselves over. It's like, have you got a story? Do you want to tell a story? Hello?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm surprised Mace Windu hasn't come back yet, because they'll probably find a way to do it.
I feel like that's next on the chopping block in some ways. Like,
I mean, yeah, Samuel Jackson has proven that he's willing to do practically anything.
Secret Invasion. So... My God, that was so bad.
I have a theory of The Force Awakens, and that is knowing creative people, and I think critical. I think you'll agree with me on this. Is that when you go into a project, sometimes you actually build the project from the middle out because you have a vision for a thing, and then you build everything around it because you're in love with this thing in the middle. Yes, that's right.
Sorry.
It's okay. Someone's disagreeing with me already. It's okay. I can handle it. And when I saw The Force Awakens, and that moment where there was the Triumph of the Will, Lenny Riefenstahl moment of the flags and the white outfits, the black and the red, as soon as I saw that, I went, JJ pitched that. That was the first scene that he was going to build the entire movie around, because he was in love with the idea that the First Order was as strong, as badass as the Empire, which makes no sense at all.
Yeah.
It absolutely made no sense at all, because they were defeated, and the first movie should have been about the rebels taking over and trying to tame the rest of the galaxy. And I went, wow, that was the image he had in his head before he started the movie, right out of Lenny Riefenstahl's Triumph of the Will.
I mean, I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with like starting or your germ of an idea starting in the middle of your story or the end or wherever. It can start wherever, as long as you've got the intelligence and the creativity to then build a compelling story around all of that. But it's like what he did was,
but that scene made no sense. It made no sense.
Yeah, it's like if what you're saying is the case, which it very well could be, his thought process seems to be almost like, I've got this great visual metaphor here comparing, this the First Order to the Nazi Party and stuff. And all those big rallies and everything. And like, fine, I've got that symbology there. Like that was obviously implied anyway with the original trilogy, but fine, I'm just going to make it super overt with this. But it's like the rest of the thought process was just, well, let's take the safest, blandest, easiest story we can do that just gets us to that point. And it's like, we're just going to essentially have all the major components that we had in A New Hope. We're just going to do it with flashier visuals nowadays, and different protagonist, a female protagonist, and that's essentially going to be it.
Yeah, and Kathleen Kennedy gave me express orders to do nothing with Luke.
Yeah,
I have been told to debase Luke to the best of my abilities.
Well, I mean, I would be interested to have known what his outline for The Last Jedi would have been, for what Episode 8 would be.
Considering,
because I feel like he would have probably treated Luke better than Rian Johnson did.
Like, bear in mind, in Rise of Skywalker, which went back to JJ, he had Luke catch the lightsaber instead of throwing it away. And he had, like, you know, retcons of, like, oh, no one can do the hyperspace kamikaze. That was a 1 in a million shot holder. Like, there's all these different... The writers are clearly fighting. And it includes Luke, right? Like, I don't think JJ would have done what Rian did.
Well, JJ would have done the safe thing. He would have taken the safe option, the one that's going to generate the most revenue and that's going to please the most people. And it would have just been having Luke be a hero, train, you know, Rey a little bit, and then he probably would have still died. And then the plan, I guess, was going to be to focus on Leia for the third movie, because each one was going to focus on a different legacy character. So it might have had the same general beats as The Last Jedi. It would have treated Luke in a much more positive light, because that's what JJ is all about. It's just like being the crowd pleaser, just given the most taking the path of least resistance from a narrative point of view.
Yeah, I can buy that. Because also with the First Order and everything, like he clearly wanted to have, like, I don't want to write a team that's in power and part of the government. I want them to be the underdogs who chased at every corner by a big overwhelming force that we will defeat in the end. And it's like, oh yeah, you want to be New Hope, right? Of course, I forgot. Yeah. It's just that's the DNA.
But what he did with Star Wars is not surprising. With what he did with Star Trek, right? He just did Wrath of Khan again too. He does it all the time.
So yeah,
stuff that's already made and
repurpose it, make it flashier, faster paced, make everyone younger and more energetic, and just do the same thing again.
And lens flares.
Lens flares, yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing how successful that strategy was. Like people genuinely credited him as saving Star Trek and resurrecting it.
Yeah, and saving Star Wars from George Lucas and stuff. That there was an era for that. It lasted like a year or so.
Yeah.
I remember the tide turning on Force Awakens soon after TLJ came out hardcore, because people were like, wait a minute, was TFA really that good? And it's like,
It's like everyone waking up from this collective delusion, like, oh my god.
What's at the core of it? We all want to like Star Wars. It's fun.
Yep.
Simple.
I made a point in my newest video about it, that, like, it's not the IPs that are dead, it's the people that are in control of them. And that's just what it is. Star Wars doesn't suck. Star Wars is great. It's the people that have Star Wars in their hands. They're the ones that suck. So there you go.
Yeah. But if they produce so much stuff that sucks, then I don't know, does that eventually overwhelm the good stuff to the point where, like, well, the brand's now just damaged?
Yeah, you dilute it.
People have a negative view of it. Because
if
I go into, like, anything, like say it's a completely unknown IP to me, and it's like I'm going to go into it and, like, give this a try, and people say to me, well, you know, the probably 10% of it is, like, really good and you'll love it. The other 90% is just garbage and it's not worth your time. I'd be like, well, doesn't seem like it's worth getting into this, because, like, the overwhelming majority of it is shit. Like, why is it worth my time?
Well, there's no merchandising around it. It's dead. So I think that's an example. That's an indicator of just how dead it is.
I think it said Ahsoka only had 1.2 million views when it first premiered, which was down from, I think it was I'll go off memory, 1.9 million, I believe it was, for Book of Boba Fett, and 2.2 for Obi-Wan. So like, people aren't tuning in.
Yeah. And this is a streaming service. I can't remember what it's called, but it's like a third-party streaming service that has these channels available to them. But they publish their viewing figures, so it's like a third maybe of the overall viewing. But they do it consistently for each show, so it gives you a benchmark for how popular they are in relation to each other. And like you say, it's less popular than Book of Boba Fett and less popular than Obi-Wan. So it's not the show that's going to save Star Wars, put it that way.
And it's even worse when you think about it this way, because when Book of Boba Fett came out, I believe They were at 42.9 million subscribers on Disney Plus. They gained 3 million since Book of Boba Fett to Ahsoka. So they have more potential viewers when Ahsoka came out, and it still had less views.
Now, I just want to jump in. Endymion, the fact that you remember these stats, I suggest that you maybe get another hobby.
Am I wrong?
No. I'm just saying the fact that you're able to.
Remember them. Yeah.
Well, and remember them. That
if you make videos on this stuff, then I suppose you kind of have to know. Yeah, remember it.
I want you to enjoy yourself. I'm seeing a conflicted individual that maybe,
I need more free time to play video games. I know.
There you go.
I'm too much making video stuff. I know.
Are you married?
No.
Okay. I was just going to say.
Thank God.
You need to take care. You need to pay 31. More attention to.
No ball and chain on this.
I have a girlfriend, but not married.
I'm 40 years. We had our 40th anniversary.
Hey, congratulations. I can't even fathom that, but congratulations.
Thank you.
That's awesome, man.
I can't condone that, but good.
Like 40 years with one person. It's like I'm only 31, so that's like I can't even fathom that.
Should we do a few super chats before we finish up for the evening, gentlemen?
Yeah, I got to run, so let's do it.
I got Iron Maiden in 2 hours.
Okay, we will be done in like 20 minutes.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's cool. I'll do the next one here. So let me see. Yeah, Mr. Lucas says, Platoon, why did you say there wasn't much meaning to the prequel fights? Sure, not as much as the OT, but you compared it to Disney's? Question.
Oh, was this from Brownstream yesterday? Yeah, no, I think if you the point I was trying to make there was that if you compare Obi-Wan and Vader in A New Hope, which if you look at it on a purely technical level, then you will be disappointed because no one's moving particularly well. No. It's quite clunky. It looks awkward. They've clearly not really trained. But that's not really the point of the fight. The fight isn't supposed to look impressive. The fight is impressive because of what it means, what it signifies, and where it builds and leads to afterwards. Now, you can compare that even with certain fights in the prequels. They are incredibly technically adept, very flashy, immense amount of training, and it shows, and it's very impressive to look at. But if you actually delve into what a huge number of them really mean, I mean, Dooku versus Anakin loses his arm. And that's poetic symmetry, I guess, maybe, kind of. But the fight itself is not hugely symbolically important. It's just there to look impressive and because the fight needs to happen. And then Obi-Wan v. Anakin at the end is supposed to mean something, but you would have got the point in 30 seconds. The fight goes on for 30 minutes. And that sort of dilutes the meaning of the thing over time. So for all it's flashy and impressive, a lot of the prequel fights don't really have the same sort of substance as the OT does. And they have something in common with Disney in that respect. A lot of the Disney Star Wars fights don't have a huge amount of substance to them either. They are just there because fights are meant to happen.
I'm going to do it, guys. Step back. I'm going to do it. I'm going to defend the prequels. Here I go. Oh, God. I'm going to need to put on my hazmat suit.
He's about to go.
Here we go.
Duck and cover, everyone.
Disclaimer. A lot of it feels like it's stuff that over the decades people have coped into the stories, but there are some fights in the prequels where I've seen people dig into them for analysis where I've been like, that is kind of interesting, and I didn't think about that at all. One of them, as an example, would be the Palpatine versus Yoda one. People could be like, that's just fucking fan service. You've got like the top tier Jedi versus the top tier Sith bouncing around doing their shit. And I remember someone saying, like, don't you think it's really awesome in terms of symbology that they're battling in the the chamber of all the universes, all the worlds, and that he's throwing the seats that represent the worlds at Yoda, and he has to like that's Palpatine's puppetry. He's using the whole universe to try and destroy Yoda. I was like, that's fun as an idea.
That's way more thought than George Lucas put into it, but yeah,
that's the thing. It's Schrodinger's meaning. I don't know if like how much of it was actually there versus not. Then, of course, there's the Obi-Wan Qui-Gon versus Darth Maul. The soundtrack being Duel of the Fates is supposed to represent that this is the key moment where that'll define Vader's existence. Because if Qui-Gon had survived the fight, he would have mentored Anakin and he would have taken him in a different route. Obi-Wan's quote-unquote failure as a teacher and the Jedi's failure as an institution is what creates Darth Vader, and it's Darth Maul's killing of Qui-Gon. It's the fates that clash, and one of them. This is what you get what I mean. There's a lot of people who talk about the meaning of these fights, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. That's something there. But I'm like, but how much is actually from the film versus how much people have worked at this for years trying to sort of get meaning out of it. So that's like a partial defense, partial criticism sort of thing.
No, I'm with you. I mean, I'm not saying all the fights are completely insubstantive, and I think the Qui-Gon Maul Obi-Wan one is a good example of actually, this is a fight that does matter. It does mean something for the grander Star Wars universe. I think it probably goes on too long, and it is designed to be more impressive than anything else, but it does have meaning underlying it. But you would have made the same point in a tenth of the time had it been an OT Star Wars fight. I guess what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, so for reference, because I would never be able to compare them to the OT. Like the meaning in the Vader versus Luke, both of their battles is incredible. Obviously, Luke and Vader. Those are the three significant fights in the entire OT, and that's something that Ahsoka and all these other shows have done is they've completely diminished the lightsaber duel. It's just a fucking light show, and we don't know if anything's going to happen. It's just like and then we move on.
I really want to get back to that point where lightsabers are terrifying weapons, because this beam of light that can cut through fucking anything, like obviously it's ripe for just hacking off limbs, and the OT did a good job of that. Like it showed that the prequels kind of did it as well. Like Anakin loses a whole bunch of limbs. We just don't get it anymore.
Nope.
Someone gets speared through the gut and then they're fine afterwards. Like no,
but that she had it on medium.
Yeah. She just lightly baked
that
the
is
inside.
So dumb.
That's
here's
a question.
I will give them one thing though. For whatever reason, they got rid of the flaming hilt, the T-shaped hilt. Which was the dumbest, stupidest thing. Because you're gonna cut yourself on the leg or something.
It's dumb, but it looks cool.
I think that the dumbest thing. Well, there's two actually. One is the stupid spinning lightsabers that the Inquisitors have, which is fucking like helicopter shit. Like
that's true.
That, and then there was that thing from Rise of Skywalker where like Rey meets evil Rey, and like she's got this weird foldy out lightsaber.
The flip saber.
That is legit going to cut your legs
Swiss
off.
Army knife thing. What the fuck was that? I remember all the memes about it. But the thing is, you just reminded me by that crossguard saber. That's like the first time that the fandom started to fight, because that trailer came out and you saw the crossguards. I remember everyone on forums being like, "That's dumb as fuck." It's like, no, that's cool as shit. And then people talking about lightsabers in general, and then talking about designs and stuff. And I just remember being like, "Oh, this is Star Wars is revving back up. Here we go. Look what we are now."
It's like you didn't like this. You didn't like this particular movie. You're a literal Nazi. That's where we got to.
Old man arguing over 40-year-old movies.
Yeah. Waylon Vicefus says, liver cancer or Ahsoka? Bet you didn't see that one coming.
Do I have a choice?
I think liver cancer is more survivable. So I'll go with that.
Yep.
Cirrhosis of Liver says, to the panel, which actor has galaxy tier acting skills regardless of politics or notoriety other than Anthony Hopkins, MauLer?
Galaxy tier, I would go Christian Bale for me. I love him.
Pretty good.
I love him.
Joaquin Phoenix.
Kurt Russell. Just love him in everything.
You mean that's still alive?
Presumably, I don't know.
I think you can go.
Also, Kurt Russell is alive. For anybody who's like,
he is alive. Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to be in that Godzilla thing on Apple soon with his son. He's playing the older version of his son in that show.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Michael Caine, I saw him in the trailer for the new movie where he's the 90-year-old guy who escapes from the old folks' home to go to Normandy.
Oh yeah,
and I was crying in the just the trailer. I was crying, so I'm going to give it to Michael Caine.
I mean, this could be one of the last movies he does as well. Realistically, like
he's 90,
keep going for that's crazy, man.
He's so
it'll suck when he passes.
Yeah. I mean, he's going to leave a hell of a legacy behind him because
absolutely.
Wow, what a career! Jordan Pendragon says it was the 85th anniversary of the original 1937 Snow White last year, and it got me thinking: which year do you all believe was the best year ever for cinema?
Ooh.
It's gonna be a tough one because we're gonna go off our own experiences, and I think that most of us are younger, so we're probably gonna go for some year in the 80s or 90s, I would imagine. Whereas Paul's got a longer depth of experience, so you might
Thank you.
be able to yeah.
I'm going to say 2008 off the top of my head, because 2008 was Dark Knight came out, and so did Iron Man, and those were like, in my opinion, that changed cinema for better and for worse. That was a pretty important year. Yeah,
I think for me, it's like there's been so many influential movies that have come out, like in that sort of period, like 70s, 80s, 90s. Like every decade has had like massively important movies that have come out in it, and it's hard to pin down one specific year and say like this was the most important year. It's an impossible question.
Yeah.
I think it's a tough one. I think it would ultimately just come down to our personal preferences for like favorite movies or whatever, which is probably not the same as like most influential films of all time.
Like if you say what's the best decade of films, like I was born in the 90s, so I'm going to go with the 90s. So I just love that era of movies. But it's an impossible question because like every year is something different, right? But I'll just say 2008 because that was a year where like everything kind of shifted. But is it the best overall? Probably not, but whatever. I mean, it can't be the best year because 2008, I think, is when Transformers Revenge of the Fallen came out, I think. Or 2009. That's a horrible movie, so I don't know.
I feel like we haven't had, I don't know, like movies with a sort of long, real sort of cultural impact since the early 2000s. You know, if I think back now, what would perhaps like the Lord of the Rings trilogy be the last time that we had really significant films like that?
Yeah,
because I can't think of much since then where it's like they're still, you know, well remembered, well regarded even now. There's obviously been far more commercially successful films, but that's not really the same thing. Like Avatar made the most ever, but no one fucking talks about
2008 was what, 2009, 2008, 2009, somewhere there,
round about that.
Yeah.
Didn't The Thing and Blade Runner release within like a week of each other? That was a good week.
That'd be 1980, wouldn't it?
That's crazy.
I remember them releasing really close or something. And I was just like, man, imagine going to the cinema back to back, seeing those two.
Was that 1989? That would have been for The Thing, I think.
No, that was early 80s.
The Thing, I thought The Thing was.
The
Thing
was 82.
82, that was the one.
I wasn't even alive.
I was definitely not alive at the time.
Nor was I.
For me, a big year was 71. Because
I can't conceive of such a year.
So you had French Connection, Fiddler on the Roof, Vanishing Point. You had Two-Lane Blacktop, Clockwork Orange. Summer of 42 was huge.
Not bad.
Was Clockwork Orange 71?
Straw Dogs. I mean, these are all movies, right? So,
the
70s was
Dirty Harry was 70.
Yeah, well, the 70s was the era of the genre movie, wasn't it? Like the lower budget dramas, you know, like very, very much like imaginative.
I
the
think
opposite of what we have now.
The Last Picture Show was in 71, I think. So, I mean, I'm gonna go with 71.
Jaws, 75.
Yeah.
That was the first blockbuster, wasn't it?
I think first legitimate blockbuster. Yeah.
Well, some people suggested 99. I was just having a look at it. It's like, you got Fight Club, The Matrix, American Beauty, Green Mile, Eyes Wide Shut, Toy Story 2. There's a lot like Office Space, Boondock Saints, the South Park movie, which I think is awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Iron Giant, American Pie, Blair Witch Project. Like a lot of these.
I like how you put the Boondock Saints in there.
Fucking Austin Powers, the Spy Jack, the second one. There's some stuff. Oh, Phantom Menace, of course. Changed cinema forever. Hey, The Mummy came out in 99. Okay,
I honestly, I feel like we could go through every year from like probably the 70s up until like the end of the 90s, and we'd find amazing movies.
It seemed like we were floating between our favorites and most influential and game changing. The second being, of course, probably more objective to figure out what the actual answer is, because like I feel like Paul was on something with in terms of a year that changed cinema, or at least influenced everything going forward. it's hard to say which one would be the most, but yeah, we're all gonna have favorites that probably sort of sit around our own eras.
I'm just gonna say the 90s. Yeah,
just generally the 90s.
The 90s. I mean, 87 apparently one of my favorite movies came out, Evil Dead 2, but
I just felt the pressure to pick something pre-80s. You guys put a huge
no,
amount
I think
of
you did it.
on me.
No, I think you picked a good one as well. You know?
It was great being a small child in the period between sort of 99 and 2005 was good, because if you like the Lord of the Rings, you're sorted. Right. If you like the Star Wars, that you're too old, you're too young to know better, and so the prequels were amazing. I still have fond memories of the prequels. It's just that they're kind of hard to sit through. But that period from 99 through 2005 was pretty good.
Yeah, 77 was Star Wars, the first one.
Mm-hmm.
I saw the very first showing in Toronto.
You're from Toronto?
Yep.
I'm from Brampton.
Hey,
there you go.
We don't talk to people from Brampton.
Yeah, I know. I know.
I'll do a few more here.
Well, we'll have to get together.
I live in Calgary, Alberta.
Oh, you do? That's where my daughter lives.
Most of my family's in Ontario still, though.
Okay.
I haven't visited in a while, though.
I can visit your folks for you. Say hi. Endymion says hello on your behalf.
I do have to visit on Toronto, though, probably in the next year or two.
Yeah, my daughter's in Calgary with her husband.
There you go. Calgary's nice. Lower taxes too.
He's learning to be a brain person.
Should we all just share our home addresses? Just get the doxing.
Yeah.
Well, I don't care. Whatever. I live in Calgary.
I mean, there's only like 10,000 people watching, so yeah.
No,
I'm sure it'll be fine.
Pretty good.
Mr. Luca says, how much money are the companies saving when it comes to tax rebates for film? Saw a post saying that Disney are fine when he broke down the Indy 5 budget. No, they're definitely not fine. Like I know sometimes they can get like a tax rebate. I think they made about 50 million back in tax breaks and stuff because they filmed the bulk of it in the UK. So that saved some of it, but like still it was like well over 200 million that they spent because it was about 300 million that they admitted to. So you're talking about 250 million still, even with those tax rebates plus marketing. So they do save a bit, but not enough like to save a flop.
No, Indy 5 bombed. And like my most recent video is about this rumor that because Indy 5 bombed so hard, James Mangold might not even make his Dawn of the Jedi movie, which I don't think is going to happen. I hope he doesn't make it, because that movie, you think Star Wars has been ruined now? Imagine a Dawn of the Force movie. That would
I don't know how much of the heat is going to be put on him, because ultimately he's just directing the script that he was given. But yeah, I mean, it's probably not going to help his career, put it that way.
Do you guys saw the what's his name? Oh God, my brain's gone. This show's gone on way too fucking long. My brain, I can't think anymore. The Mangold film, but
which one?
Indiana Jones. So I didn't see it, but people I talked to, when I asked, does it look like it was shot well? And people went, yeah, it looks good, except for the 3D.
I'd say they're lying to you.
Oh, okay.
I mean, there's a heavy use of CGI.
Apart from that,
not welcome in an indie film.
Yeah,
I don't know. Beyond that, like I guess the shot composition and stuff is fine. Like there wasn't many things that jumped out at me just from a photography point of view.
Okay, I was just curious about that.
Yeah, and it bombed hard. I remember looking up the last indie movie, Crystal Skull. If you like adjust it for inflation purposes, it made almost like $1 billion in today's money.
Wow.
Yeah, but the new one they lost something like 300 million on it. So I don't think that Dawn of the Jedi is going to happen now because of that. No way. And you think about it, like
Mangold's a good director.
No, yeah, he did Logan, right? So like I know he's really good at doing the whole deconstructing of characters and stuff. And kind of. He did it well in Logan. Let's put it that way. Let's give him that at least. Yeah. But he'd probably ruin Star Wars if he got his hands on it, because whenever these studios retcon things and go back, like just look at Netflix with The Witcher when they did Blood Origin. They decided to explain the conjunction of the spheres. It was so bad.
No. We wanted to make The Witcher that we always wanted to make. That is their quote. It's the dumbest piece
whenever
of shit.
you retcon things, it's horrible. I think about too recently was with Secret Invasion, right? Oh, Rhodey's a Skrull. That ruins everything about his character in so many key moments. Like, just don't. No, we don't need to know what the Force is. The Force is just the Force. Let's stop.
Marvel's fully transitioned into no fucks given territory now. It's just like get what you can and then run.
That line, man. From
how do you
Secret
explain
Invasion.
the Force? Like, how would you even do that? You can't.
Midichlorians.
The
Force was perfectly explained in A New Hope
by Yoda.
It's an energy field that flows throughout every living thing. Perfect. That's all I need. I
so
can
how
go with that.
exactly? So their whole Dawn of the Jedi movie, like, how would you even what are you going to explain? That it came from somewhere? Like any explanation you come up with is just going to ruin it. It's sort of like if they tried to explain the zombie apocalypse and The Walking Dead. Any explanation they would have come up with would piss people off. So just don't.
I think the Force, particularly because it's supernatural, it's like it shouldn't really be explained. It doesn't need to be.
No.
So just leave it mysterious. That's the
and
whole
you
point.
either have it or you don't.
I'm more than willing to have additional teachers in future have different points of view about it, but stay broad, stay philosophical. Don't go like there's actually mechanical beings that exist that come in and out of it. Let's not do that.
You already have loads of points of view because in Anakin's point of view, the Jedi are evil.
No,
that's a
then
point
you
of
are
view
lost.
on the Force.
Well, here's a question for all of us, right? From Anthony Putch. He says, so it's a Red Letter Media MFK. So Jay, Mike, and Rich. So
marry Rich, obviously.
I don't know,
wait, what's the question? Wait, what?
I feel like I could settle down with Mike. We could be happy together.
What was it? Mary fucking. What was the last one?
Kill.
Well,
that means you have to kill Rich because you're not going to fuck him.
No, you'd have to fuck Jay, wouldn't you? Really?
I'd probably marry.
He's in good shape, so you'd have to kill Rich, I think.
Oh, that's so sad, though.
Well, I know. I don't know. I don't want to kill any of them, but
Rich's laugh is like
decision is forced upon me.
Rich's laugh is like pure happiness.
Yeah,
I love it. They're my favorite anything on YouTube. My favorite thing ever.
Isn't marry, fuck, kill just the general relationship trajectory of anyone Mr. Blinker gets together with?
I would say, yeah.
Yeah, why not?
So generally it'd be like fuck, kill, and then fuck, marry, and then kill. I suppose you could kill them and then marry them. I suppose. Yeah.
Wow. This is way too highbrow for me.
Yeah. Normie says, I would trust Tatiana if she said that she loved me more than I trust Disney to change. What say you? I think you're right. Yeah. She'll say anything for the right price. Probably for Disney as well. Blue Collar Loser says, Drinker, I got my first $50 super chat watching Little China. I felt guilty that someone sending me so much, so I've got to pay it forward to you, my friend.
Wow.
Thank you very much, man. Wow. Appreciate it.
Very nice.
RRTNZ says, Hail Drinker and panel. Hope Chato introduces you to Prisoners of Gravity, a late 80s sci-fi comic show that's an archive of great ideas from an amazing creative mind. Also, boot to the head.
Thank you. That's a reference to our most popular sketch that Dr. Demento played right across the United States and became for 2 years running the top comedy sketch. And nice. Whenever you tell Americans, they go, "What? Boot to the head? Hey, I know you." It's quite funny. It's good. Yes, our show did play in the UK, I believe, on Channel 4 for 13 sad episodes, and then never got repeated again. But yeah, it is sad. But what was the other thing that he mentioned?
Prisoners of Gravity.
Oh yeah, so Prisoners of Gravity is one of the Frantics. Rick Green did the very first show on pop culture that interviewed the very last interview with Jack Kirby. So if you're into comic books, Alan Moore in his youth when he wasn't so weird, and Ellison, top science fiction writers. It's a phenomenal show. So if you search YouTube for Prisoners of Gravity, it's about a 4-year series, and it's just fantastic. He talks with all our heroes, and many of them before they became heroes. It's fantastic. And Neil Gaiman with his very first book, was on the show promoting it. It's staggering. It's really neat. And the interview with Jack Kirby will bring a tear to your eye, because he was just sitting there in the chair like this. And then he was asked the first question and he brightened up and he came back to life, and he just answered all the questions with the kind of vigor and energy that Jack Kirby had when he was younger. And then at the last question, he kind of drifted back away and you were just crying. It was really quite something. So yeah, Prisoners of Gravity, way before G4. And Chris Gore, bite me. Prisoners of Gravity. Search it on YouTube. It's great if you're into all the comic book stuff and science fiction.
Nice. I'll do one more here. Blue Collar Loser says, I saw an early view of The Creator. I don't say it lightly, but it's my favorite film of 2023.
Wow.
How does a film of $80 million look better than any Disney $300 million film? MauLer better like this film, or I will find him.
Okay, geez.
Yeah.
That comes out very soon, right?
Wait, Drinky, you're seeing it tomorrow, did you say?
Yeah.
Okay, on your recommendation, I'll go check it out. If you
okay, I will let you know after I get home. But yeah, I won't do any more super chats right now, because we've done a whole bunch of them. I know we've been streaming for about 3 hours or so. Just before we finish up, I want to say to you, gentlemen, thank you for joining me for this. It's a real pleasure to have you, Paul, Endymion, and Platoon. Thank you for coming on for this tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
like this has been like for watching you guys forever, and now I'm here. It's just like I don't even know what to say.
Well,
Just
you have a very, very good show.
Thank you.
We do, don't we, Drinker? We do.
And the
Oh, you're talking to them. I thought you were talking to me.
No, it's our show.
You guys are my favorite.
It's not my show.
We've got an awesome new intro as well. But yeah, thank you to everyone as well for joining us for it. For all the awesome super chats. As always, we will catch up with the ones that we've missed tonight. And to my new channel members as well, thank you for joining up, and thank you for supporting the channel. And my mods as well. Like, you guys have done an awesome job, as you always do. And just before we finish up, I know MauLer's going to make you aware of something as well. But
right.
I was just going to say as well, the Critical Doggo plushie, you can see it here. Smokey actually ripped the sunglasses off it, because normally it has them attached. But it fell off the shelf, and he got his paws on it. And he started chewing it, and he managed to tear the sunglasses off. So it does have eyes underneath.
Wanted it to be more accurate to the source material. Can you blame him?
I think he was jealous, because this one's based on Lara, so he's like, "Yeah, I'll destroy that." But anyway, it's we've sold almost 2,000 of them actually.
Wow,
so it's done great. Yeah, we're trying to get it to 2,000 before the campaign ends. But like I said when we launched it, the proceeds of this, I'm going to donate it all to like a Greyhound Rescue Center near me, where we got both of my critical doggos. So yeah, if you feel inclined to help with that, or you want to make a little donation or pick up a plushie, the link is in the description. But anyway, I won't bore you with that anymore. I'll turn it over to MauLer, because I know.
So I was just going to mention that good old me and Fringy have been editing hard on the old Ahsoka episodes, and that the reaction to the 4th episode, where Balin becomes the most interesting character for the rest of the whole show, is about to start on MauLer. I don't know if I can link it in the old chat. Am I not moderated yet? Gosh, Drinker, I'm gonna type that out.
Just put it in normal chat, and I will put it up on screen.
Yeah,
but I don't trust you to moderate. You know.
I know. Who knows what kind of viruses I could send everybody in chat? That's exactly what I would do. But yeah, we're trying to get them all out within the next 2 weeks. So that's another 4 episodes. We're just editing like crazy, but they're usually pretty fun. So if you're not too busy after this stream, if you want to check that out, it's premiering in 60 seconds. So it's about to start.
There we go. I put the link there.
Thank you very much.
No problem. But yeah, I think I guess that's us pretty much done. That is all we've got for today. So go away now.
Bye.
Have a good day.